Welcome, everybody, to the final week of the regular season of the ACES competition. And we have a major playoff implication match today, as the Bloodbath Bay Buccaneers, having already clinched a playoff spot, sitting at 2-1, fishing for a first round bye, barring some other results. Meanwhile, the Kunlun Vampires, the name of the game tonight is very simple. Win and you are in, lose and you go home. In a do or die week 4 matchup, will the Bloodbath Bay Buccaneers swashbuckle the Vampires back into the grave, or will the Vampires be sucking on some blood from the Bloodbath Bay? Welcoming you everybody inside the broadcast booth. My name is Shadows, and I am joined by my partner in time, the one and only Clockwork's nice little owl brother, Slink17. How's it going, my good man?
Oh, things are going good. I'm really excited for this match. It's got some great runners from across all the games in the Sly community here. So I'm excited to see what happens with this one.
Yeah, absolutely. And I am just, it's so good to be on comms once again, and it's so good to see two teams that have had a very interesting run across the entire regular season. We've seen a unusual pairing of a trio we've seen here with Mappiotho Knave and Professor PS2 having a very versatile moveset. And you could say the same thing as well with the Kunlun Vampires. Bacon Man, of course, being very familiar with Sly 3, Ostrava running a lot of games. Stevens, maybe mainly known for his Sly 1 work, but still very capable as proven in his tournaments. And as we will get into the draft here, we're already seeing handful of honestly decently popular episodes so far in this tournament getting banned already. Not necessarily 4-3, but 3-6 has been picked a handful, and 2-5 has been picked a handful of times as well. So Slink, what's the draft strategy here for both teams? What are you thinking if you're on the Vampires or if you're on the Bucks?
If I'm the Bucks, I'm feeling like Knave's been playing a lot of 3-3 lately. Oh, and then
There it goes.
first ban from the Vampires, so that makes
call.
sense. But they have really just versatile runners on both sides, so it's kind of, I feel like you can kind of get anything you want here.
And for anything they want, they are going to go with 2-3. Interesting pick there. I would actually like to pull up the ACES stats for that. I'm not sure quite how many times we have seen that in this tournament. It would seem that it's only been picked around, well, I say only picked around 25% of the time, but the 2-3 has been a decently popular pick for the Vampires. Wonder who we're going to see on that one. I would imagine either Ostrava or Stevens, probably going to save Bacon for a Sly 3 episode if it pops up. Now for Bloodbath Bay with their pick, we will see what they get here. I would imagine maybe another Sly 2 episode. 2-4 is still right there on the board, so we will see if maybe they want to just go out on a little bit of a whim to see if we can get something different here. That pick is in, and they are going to England, actually. That's a bit of a surprise. They're going to 4-4. I'm not sure how many of their episode runners are familiar with Sly 4. I would imagine that's a Mappiotho pick. How do you feel about that?
Oh yeah, definitely Mappiotho pick there. Mappiotho is very, very good at Sly 4 as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess we would know the measure of pretty good Sly 4 players. Of course, Slink and myself, that is our bread and butter as Sly 4 runners primarily. But yes, Mappiotho especially has been doing some great work on Sly 4, and I believe he has already run Sly 4 once into this tournament in the previous rounds, 4-4 especially. And now we will see some more bans. We're going to see a lot of Sly 3 getting banned, and this is getting down to some interesting episodes. If the Kunlun Vampires want to pick one for Bacon Man, they can either go for the home field advantage, or they can maybe take a little bit of a different direction, going to 3-5. Guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens here with the ban from the Buccaneers. But yeah, they got rid of 4-2, so unfortunately all our 4-2 fans are not going to be happy today.
Yeah, so I would like to be optimistic about 2-4 getting picked in this match, but like I said, unless Bacon has been practicing a lot more Sly 2, or unless they have a different sort of strategy here on the board, because I can't imagine him being the one to go to 4-4 for Kunlun. I can't imagine 2-4 being the pick here. Might even see the Buccaneers ban it, but we'll see. They can ban from any game at this stage, I believe, right? So I wonder if they just really narrow down the Sly 3 for Bacon Man. We'll see what happens here.
Looks like Buccaneers got rid of all of Sly 2.
Yeah. Sly 2 is gone. There's that. I would imagine if you're Kunlun, this has to be one of 3-4, 3-5. We'll see what it is. I would not be... Oh, no! Really?
4-1.
That's shocking! Huh. So no Sly 3 for Bacon Man. That is a huge development here in this round. And it was Kunlun who picked that.
This is definitely an interesting set of episodes. I'll be curious the order, and I'll be curious which runners are taking which episode.
Yeah, I'm going to be... Wow, I was really not expecting that. Of course, folks, make no mistake here. I'm not calling Bacon Man a one-trick pony. It's just Sly 3 is what he's most familiar with. And like, yeah, you have both 3-4 and 3-5. And again, 3-4, I think he's run at least once in this tournament. I'm very shocked to see Kunlun not do that. So I wonder if they have a sort of strategy for that. Like, hey, this is win or go home in the playoffs. Let's try and mix things up. Maybe that wasn't necessarily a pick to your strength. Maybe they thought there was a idea of pick to an opponent's weakness as our runners now begin some preparation here. But Blink, how are you feeling about that pick? What do you think that implies for the Kunlun strategy?
You know what? I gotta imagine that they're gonna have Bacon Man on 4-4 there, and then I would guess Stevens some time to get 4-1 set up. I know for myself, one of my matches we didn't get any Sly 4, and I had to set up a Sly 3 file while the other two runners were going. So I feel like that might be kind of one of the things that might be happening here.
I mean, you're definitely onto something with that. That's definitely has happened a vast majority of times within this tournament where you want to try and give some other runners a little bit of buffer time to try and set things up. I know that if I was in the position that some of these runners were and I had to try and set something up last minute, I would definitely want to I would want to do things in a way like that. Also, Slink, something I think that you and I can both kind of appreciate as well as Sly 4 players. Notice 4-1 is the very last episode that we are going to have to play. So as two former world record holders here of 4-1, we're going to be able to give some great commentary on that. That's going to be a great finale to look forward to, and I'm really going to be looking forward to seeing who is running on that. But yeah, I guess in a moment here, we will truly reveal to all of the beautiful people in chat who our runners are here. Yeah, Slink, what are you most looking forward to? What do you think is going to be the most interesting matchup here for episodes between the two teams?
I'm looking at PS2 Professor, and then probably versus Stevens on that Sly 2 episode 3 is probably what I would bet would be the poll there. I think that's gonna cause a lot of time differences between the two, or at least it's gonna be the most interesting to watch. And yeah, I mean, Mappiotho is probably the most experienced Sly 4 runner that we have here between these six, but anything could happen here.
Yes, no, absolutely. It is ACES, ladies and gentlemen. Anything can certainly happen. We have definitely seen our fair share of chaotic turn of event kind of matches. You, my friend, as a member of the Nunavut Lumberjacks, would know that firsthand when you guys were facing a major deficit against the Peacocks, and then you overcame nearly like a 3.5-minute deficit to pull it out. And there's going to be more interesting developments here as we see the New Bloods take the stage for the first round in 4-4, Mappiotho and Ostrava in what is, I would like to think, the hardest episode in the entire game for Sly 4, unless you want to count 4-1. So going to be a great display of skill here between two relatively new players. I think Mappiotho and Ostrava have definitely been around for a handful of years now, but just seeing the progress that these two have made is wonderful. As we see Mappiotho, they're already doing some crazy advanced tech going for a displacement boost. That's a newer development within the last few months of Sly 4 speedrunning, and he is not afraid to pull some of the stops out. So like you were saying, Slink, Mappiotho definitely showing some of the experience there. Ostrava not far behind.
Yeah, I don't think that either of these runners would end up getting lost in this episode. Both of them have run it quite a bit. Ostrava's been on the grind with both Sly 2 and Sly 4, so we should be seeing at least a good, well-knowledged match between the two players.
Yeah, absolutely not. I'm not worried about either of these two players getting lost or making some sort of mistake like that. We saw Ostrava on the right, maybe with a little bit of shaky menuing, but besides that, nah, like Ostrava's run this a fair share, and so has Mapioto. Both of them have had a good amount of time on their hands to adapt and practice to this game in particular. I would like to say for Ostrava, besides Sly 2, I think is his most ran game. I think this is definitely a close second, though, for Sly 4. And he's definitely not far behind. He's definitely pulled in some great times for Sly 4 here, as we see Mapioto nailing one of the earliest tricks you will find in the run, this being Tavern Skip. We'll see if Ostrava gets there. Bonked his head a little bit, and he's going to miss that first try. So Mapioto already not a huge lead by any means. We still have a very, very long race to go, but showing the consistency there with the runs as well. Ostrava going to give this another shot. It's going to be just short again. I think he's going to need to delay that jump a little bit more. You can jump right after you run off the ledge. You have a slight window. You don't have to jump off immediately, as Ostrava continues, unfortunately, to struggle a little bit with this skip.
Yeah, and we'll see Mapioto here on the left side doing another new skip. If you hold X at the right time, you're able to jump without getting your location marked, and so then you'll just pop up right at the head out and save some seconds there.
Absolutely. I think that is one of the coolest new skips as we see Ostrava getting out of the tavern there, moving on. I think that is one of the coolest new developments in the game here. Just kind of seeing, even though the game, some people knock Sly 4 for just being really like super consistent with movement and like every new skip only saves like 5 seconds. It's really cool to see the game really breaking the joke as we see Ostrava there also following suit, trying to do the hideout warp, in which he is not successful, unfortunately. So I think he's going to restart checkpoint and try it again as we see Mapioto go into the hack. But Slink, besides, I guess as we see Ostrava here and Mapioto get to the hack once again, trying to break this out as Ostrava gets that, what job past juggling act are we most looking forward to in this episode, especially now with some of the new strats?
Oh, it's not even just one job for me. It's the two Galith jobs are my favorite in a row. Eye in the Sky and then Mechanical Menace have some of the most fun movement and most satisfying movement, in my opinion, in all the games, really. Biased opinion, but still.
Well, opinions are opinions, but being the man that I am inclined to agree with you. I think episode 4, this episode can really kick your butt sometimes. I think it is really frustrating and it is a very high skill ceiling, but absolutely some of the jobs that you can go through and pull off in episode 4, Mapioto there having a little bit of trouble with the electric barrier. These can give you some trouble if you're not careful. But the movement ceiling with this especially, and with some of the new tech we found, is just incredible. So I really want to give credit to all the people who found that stuff. But like with Eye in the Sky, climbing the towers, you can do some really cool, mysterious reflexes, skips with both the first and third tower. Mapioto even found a new route for the second tower, which is going to be really cool, and I would assume he goes for that in this run. Then you have, as you said, Mechanical Menace, which has optimized movement out the wazoo, and I believe that movement was found by your partner, Jake. That's a great job.
Yeah.
And yeah, no, just so much to go around all around in episode 4, and there's a lot to look forward here, folks. I know it may only be the first one and there's going to be a lot of time left after this, but I'm really glad to see all the Sly 4 episodes. Is this the first time we've seen, this isn't the first time we've had multiple Sly 4 episodes in the race, is it? I think we might have had one or two
No,
other
I believe we've
times.
seen one or two other races have a couple of Sly 4s.
Yeah, I believe, I forget exactly which teams would have been playing, but I think we would have had 2-5 and 4, or did I say 2-5? I'm sorry. 4-5 and 4-2 in the same races. I believe those are bar none of the most popular Fly 4 picks. I believe this is only going to be the second time we've seen 4-1 in play for the entire competition, which I'm a 4-1 enjoyer. I love that episode a lot, so I'm very happy to see that. 4-4 we've seen a few times, and 4-3 I believe we've only seen once when the Gungathol Sabres picked it in, I believe, round 3. But yeah, no, besides that, it's definitely great to see all of the games getting some representation throughout the rounds. Like I said, no Sly 3 today, which again, I'm just very, very shocked to see. No offense, but it's definitely incredible as we see Mapioto getting through there and we see Ostrava coming up on this.
Yeah, I am excited though. We have 3 very high skill ceiling episodes between 4-4, 4-1, and 2-3.
No, absolutely. 2-3, I am unfortunately not as familiar with, although it does have some very cool jobs as well. Like, well, I don't know why I was about to say Needless Secret as first job, because that's basically an auto score, but stuff that can maybe catch you off guard in 2-3, like Rip Off the Ruby or Spice Grinder Destruction, can definitely be some tricky jobs. Mapioto, meanwhile, oh, that is a phenomenal jump. I didn't even know he could do that. We're also going to see him taking advantage of the new rules that allow you to have gadgets pre-bought before starting an episode run. So having Flash Bomb there completely invalidates Tavern Skip, which I would imagine is a big breath of fresh air for some people. As Mapioto heads on to probably the biggest skill dependent job, arguably in the entire game, in Juggling Act. So as we see Ostrava move on to the last part of Shopping Spree, my good commentator, what can you tell us about Juggling Act, that wonderful job in the circus?
Oh, what I can tell you about Juggling Act is I wish that some of those things were not found. We are able to skip quite a lot now in that job, but it's very difficult. It's very the landing spots you can land on to do those skips are very small. Um, it feels consistent when you're doing it well, and when you're not doing it well, it feels like the game broke. So we'll see what happens here, but it could go either way, even for a highly skilled runner.
Yes, absolutely. And we're actually going to see the first real kind of tech here at the very start of the job. This may not look like much, but for those of you who have seen the Remo tutorial series, you would know that this little structure that Mapioto is climbing, those ropes spinning around are on a cycle that you can actually control. So if you have the camera turned away from that tower, those little ropes will not actually spin around. So Mapioto taking advantage of that to make sure the camera stays away, and make sure he can grab those ropes at the right time. As you were saying about the stuff inside the circus, which we will see Mapioto get to in just a moment here, as Ostrava also finishes up Shopping Spree himself. I do definitely kind of agree with you in some sense that, like, yeah, like some of the stuff can definitely be frustrating, and maybe there's a day or two where you think, oh man, like, why did this have to be found? Of course, I'm very happy in reality that all that stuff was found. I always love to see the game get pushed further. But for this episode, especially, like we said, with all the difficult jobs that it already has, like Eye in the Sky and Mechanical Menace, this just adds a whole other layer of difficulty. And for a job that, for the longest time, honestly wasn't super trick heavy, because there was a lot of, like, maybe there was a few circle boosts here from a rope to try and better yourself, but nothing compared to the strats that I imagine we will see Mapioto attempt right here. These ring jumps right here, those are a lot harder than they look. And he absolutely nails them, I was going to say, but he misses the circle boost at the very end. So we'll see him try again. Unfortunate there. That can be a very tacky jump, and it can be very easy to mess up if you're not careful, which unfortunately Mapioto, I don't want to say he's getting a little flustered here, but definitely having some trouble now on the rebound, trying to get these back. He's going to have one more shot before he takes a death. He will respawn right there, of course, but still unfortunate to see him messing that up. Does get that now and gets the checkpoint with one beacon of health left, giving Ostrava a little bit of leeway as we see him climb to the top of that tower, rather, and see Mapioto try and attempt the second ring jump if he decides to go for it, which he will.
Yeah, we did also see Ostrava struggle a little bit getting up on the tower. Had to restart checkpoint, do it a second time.
Yes, I did. We did see that as well. I think he turned the camera the wrong way coming out of the safe house, but it looks like he was able to correct himself there. And once again, Mapioto definitely did have a little bit of struggle there. Got the second jump without much issue, nailed that pretty, made it look easy anyways. That second jump is arguably even harder. It's a very difficult jump, so certainly not easy. But Ostrava now, if he can make a few clutch jumps, or if he'll go for it at all, we could definitely see him close a little bit of this gap here as he heads
Oh,
inside
absolutely.
the circus.
Like we've said, we've seen comebacks of multiple minutes. Even going into the last episode of the relay, so anything could really happen. So don't want to count anybody out. Don't want to do anything like that. But both these runners putting on a good show of a lot of the new stuff that's been found for these games.
I'll definitely say. And one little thing that's going to pop up for Mapioto here, unfortunately, is because he died there, that cycle is going to be consistent. So he's going to have to wait for that target to go all the way around, which might lose him some time. Is he? I don't know if he was trying to go for a displacement boost there or what. I don't know if that would actually get him to the top of the tower. And also we see Ostrava over there. I believe he's just kind of playing it safe. He's not going for the ring jumps. Instead, he is taking it safe and playing it out with the archer costume, perhaps as intended. But while it doesn't allow for as much time save, it will mean that he's not losing as much time to those ring jumps. So Ostrava playing it a little bit more consistently here. This is more akin to how you would have seen the job played in years of old. But still, Ostrava playing it consistently, getting through this just fine.
Well, I suppose it has been about a fortnight.
Yeah, very clean so far from Ostrava inside the tent.
Oh, and unfortunately on the left side of the screen, I'm sorry, we saw Mappiotho miss the most important skip of the game. He didn't get Fortnite skip. Big sad.
Yeah, we need to get Sly 1 out here for some Fortnite skip. But viewers, as you can see, our runners are both playing in English for this game. For most of the games in the Sly series, you will almost never see a runner playing in English, but it is the fastest language for just Sly 4 episodes 4 and 5 runs, not for full game.
Strava looked like he was having a little bit of trouble with the cannonballs there, but yeah, I do believe that these episodes, Sly 4, Episode 4, and Episode 5, I do believe, are the only places where that's the case. Not counting Sly 1 officially, I'm not sure, pardon me, how much language matters in Sly 1, considering we skip a vast majority of the cutscenes in that game regardless. Strava, meanwhile, we're going to see him get through the rest of that job decently cleanly, and he is not going to have too much trouble with the cycle here, assuming he just cleans up the jumps, and assuming he will be all right. Yes, sir. And just going to take the safe way up the... Oh, no, he's not. He's going to go for the thing and hit it. Awesome.
Oh, I don't think I've seen someone get that way into the job trigger before, but that was clean.
Yeah. No, definitely made it work. Like Ostrava, like I said, he's definitely got some different kind of movement, but it's definitely all right. It's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think it's losing him much time at all, if any. So definitely keeping his team in the game right now. Like, they're only, I want to say, about a minute apart, if that. So still very close here. Mappiotho heading, meanwhile, into one of the... I don't want to call this job easy, but it's definitely one of the shorter jobs in the episode compared to a lot of the other struggles. With one little bit of tech here that I think Mappiotho will display with the flash bomb, as he does. Using that, you can make these guards have a lot of difficulty seeing you, and you can just stealth slam them like that very easily. You can do that without flash bomb. It looks a little bit different. You would have to start with the back guard and then work forward to the guy who is closer to this briefcase that... briefcase? I don't know, like cane case with the electronic lock that we're having to break into. But Mappiotho does that just fine. Gets in there. We'll have to see if Ostrava has prepared Flash Bomb or if he's going to try older strats as well.
Yeah, it is nice to see some of those new strats come in with the gadgets now that the rules have been changed to allow extra gadgets in the episode runs. Because I don't think I've ever seen them go for the first guard there before, so that was very interesting for me to see.
You know, I will fully admit, I don't even think I have seen people go for the first guard, but that's definitely better. I remember myself, I had a lot of struggle with that in 100% when I first tried to attempt that skip, but I think I was doing it the wrong way. Mappiotho being a great display of how to pull that skip off. And how do you feel about that, Slink? I know that the gadgets at the start of episodes for Sly 4, that's a little bit of a newer development, and now that we have that, we've been seeing things like Trigger Bomb get utilized in episodes like Clan of the Cave Raccoon and of Mice and Mechs. How do you think it's changed the game?
I think it's been really good for the game. It just kind of aligns it better with some of the strats we were using in full game runs. It was for a long time, pretty much once you got past episode 1, you couldn't submit your full game episodes as episode runs anymore, which led to not as many episode runs on the boards, because you had to specifically only use Paraglider in previous episode runs. And then it's also coming out with just new strats. It's not a ton. I've not seen a ton of people do like what you might see in like all job strats with some of the certain gadgets you can get, but definitely has gotten the episodes faster and made things a little bit more fun to run as well, in my opinion.
No, I definitely agree with you there. And what you were saying before, I think it also was definitely a reason, Mappiotho gets quick kill there. It was definitely a reason why we weren't seeing as many episode runs on the board, is just because, well, you couldn't validate episode runs in the same way that you could Sly 2 and Sly 3. I think it's been a really healthy change for the game. In fact, I remember I had a 90% run that, in spite of me burning like 6 or 7 seconds going into ThiefNet to buy Adrenaline Burst because I was on a 500 coin route, I actually ended up tying world record in episode 1 at the time with like 42:31, I think it was. But unfortunately, because of the rules at the time, it wasn't a valid tied record because, couldn't use gadgets at that point. Maybe it was for the better because that world record for episode 1 had been tied numerous times. Maybe it was better that we don't tie it yet again. And that episode has still been really healthy now, especially with the gadgets and all the new strats. So yeah, no, I definitely totally agree with you. I think it's been a great change for the game. I'm happy to see it for this. I'm happy to see it for Sly 3 as well, with the addition now of rocket boots in there, so we can utilize push boosting to get some really good movement tech, make things a lot faster and a lot more free flowing. I think people tend to make fun of these games for, oh, like the Sly games are just bad in terms of speedrun, blah, blah, blah. But having gadgets, like I think a lot of us here in this community have already destroyed that argument with displays of skill and whatnot. But gadgets go even further to help do that. So for all the games in the series, I think it's a very healthy change. And speaking of a healthy change, after our third Sly job, we are going to have a job that is with not Sly instead of Sly. Oh boy, we're going to see Iron Sky on Mapioto's screen with Galeth. So, speaking of changes, we were talking about all the new strat developments found. What do you have to say, if anything, about these two Galeth jobs coming up, Slink?
Oh, I mean the route for Eye in the Sky is totally different. We go on a different side of the first tower. You'll see
Like,
a
here
little,
you go, yeah.
yeah, you'll see a little trick there. You get stuck on you get a ledge grab on the corner and it boosts you up to the top. We go a completely different way onto the second tower, and then on the third tower we skip practically half the tower on mysterious reflexes, and I'm excited to see it.
And as we were saying, here's what we were going about earlier. Mapioto, the route that he found himself, mind you, he discovered this, and I believe he is going to get it just fine, circle boosting to that hook and getting to the top of the second tower. Beautifully done. That's a wonderful route, and I'm going to be very pleased to learn that once I end up getting back into this game. So yeah, like you said, no, I think this job especially, I remember climbing that first tower like a filthy casual, and just makes me feel old, but we've come a long way since then. Just all the little new quirks with movement tech, all the new people that have been implementing it. It's great. And we also are going to get to see another new bit of movement here. I guess not super new, but a mysterious reflexes here at the third tower. We will see if Mapioto can hit it here. This one can be a little bit more tricky, but if you have the right visual cue, it's not a terrible problem, and he gets it just fine.
Yep.
Beautiful
Very
Eye in
clean
the Sky
job
by Mapioto. I think like the only movement mistake potentially I saw him make was he walked for like an extra step or two on the rope that you circle boost to out of the job trigger. No, but besides that, like I can't name anything bad about that job. Very good display by Mapioto.
Yeah, and I mean the route that it was before, when a lot of us learned this game when Remo first made the any percent tutorial, had mysterious reflexes used on the first tower, and now we completely avoid that. Someone found a mysterious reflexes on the third one that is harder, but it's all about the timing of it really.
Absolutely.
We'll also be
Strava
seeing
taking a bad
Strava
landing.
going for the same strats. It looks like.
Yeah, there are also some points in 100% where you have to try and get to some of these towers. Jump onto the point of some of these, and you can kind of get a weird little ledge grab there that'll boost you up. Mapioto having a little bit of trouble with the movement there. We do see Ostrava, thankfully, get out of that. So that could definitely be annoying, but gets it just fine. And Mapioto also going for another displacement boost, I believe, there on the right. He's been going all out with those, but it's been fun to see.
I believe he's at 2 out of 3 so far on that, and that is not an easy trick to do.
Absolutely not. Like, you definitely can't just mash X on that. You really have to time and be precise. So for Mapioto to be doing that in a race setting is very good there. Ostrava, meanwhile, on the right, also taking advantage of the route that the man himself found, getting that perfectly fine. So Ostrava definitely still keeping this close, and I'm definitely interested to see how both our runners do going into Mechanical Menace, which before Eye in the Sky's improvements and before we found a lot of brand new tech inside of Juggling Act, I would have probably said at one point this was the hardest job in the entire game. How do you feel about that, Slink?
I don't know. It kind of felt like we have an auto scroller fight in Mechanical Menace, right? And it kind of felt like the whole job was an auto scroller at one point, because it was just kind of like go through the cycles and then one more slightly more difficult jump at the end. where you have to jump on a railing and then circle boost onto the rail. But yeah, for the most part, it does feel like easier now, but it still felt like this not as auto scroller to me anymore, at least.
And I definitely see your point there. I think this job has gone through a lot of weird iterations, like you said, where it's gone through an iteration of, okay, like here's the weird movement, or yeah, like here's just kind of going with the flow. You just kind of have to push things at the right time. And even then, you could still climb this tower in like 40 seconds when the casual route would have you climb it in like 80, considering that being a good time. But it definitely has evolved a lot since the new movement route here and since the new skips have been found. This one as well, Mapioto's been going for. It's a great skip there. Skips the entire little spire point section on the Dragon Mouth. But yeah, no, I guess when you say it like that, I think I might have been thinking of just a different, I don't know what time frame I would have been thinking of though. You're definitely right. This job kind of was just like an auto scroller at one point, but I think now it is definitely really cool to see how much this, along with a lot of the game, really has just evolved and it truly does feel like you're doing something very different and just going a lot faster with it. So it's very refreshing to see.
Oh yeah, definitely. And we also see here that Mapioto has Charge Shot on Carmelita, which does save a little bit of time in this job. I believe this is the only job that Charge Shot saves any time in. But it saves enough time to make buying it worth it, which in this game is rare for those gadgets.
You know, absolutely. Like, besides Paraglider, which is obviously required to beat the game, and Trigger Bomb, which just seems to save more and more time the more time passes by in this game, there aren't many gadgets in Sly 4, especially not compared to the likes of Sly 3 and Sly 2, that really change the game that much. And of course, so when you do find a gadget like, Charge Shot, or even something as small as, I think it's, what is it, Clothesline for Murray, that can save a tiny bit of time in Copycats by destroying the little wooden spinners that Murray has to get through. When you find something like that, it does feel really rewarding. But yeah, it just goes to show that they unfortunately did gadgets a little bit dirty in this game, but it is definitely cool to see them still get utilized and still be used in unique and exciting ways.
Yeah, I believe in Sly 2, for instance, the Adrenaline Burst gadget for Bentley saves like 2 seconds every time you use it, and across Sly 4, I think it saves like less than 5 seconds total.
Oh my gosh, Ostrava on the menu over there nearly misclicked and nearly went to the hideout, canceling the job. That would have been a disastrous turn of events for the Kunlun Vampires. As we see Ostrava kind of not struggling a whole bit, but that little mini dragon can be kind of annoying. We also see Ostrava not going for the more advanced movement. We see him kind of taking it a little bit easier here on Mechanical Menace, which of course, hopefully will be just fine for his team's sake. And what were we saying before? What were you saying before, Slink? I apologize. I looked over at that and my brain kind of blipped for a moment. We were talking about power-ups, and we were talking about the changes in the game.
Yeah, just for Sly 4, the power-ups just don't save a lot of time, whereas the other games, they can save quite a bit more.
That's right. You were
I
talking
believe,
about...
yeah, I believe Trigger Bomb or Rail Sprint saves the most in this game. Trigger Bomb, I believe, is the most time-saving gadget that we have, and I'd be surprised if it was over a minute saved just from having the.
I don't think it's over
gadget.
a minute, but Trigger Bomb, you are definitely right. Yeah, no, I definitely think it does save, like, probably around the ballpark of, like, 30 seconds, probably just over that as well. Somebody can fact-check me on that for if you were in the chat, but Trigger Bomb, like I said, it's definitely been saving a lot more time as it's been going on, just with things like bomb boosting and finding new ways to utilize it. Rail Sprint, I don't think saves quite as much as Trigger Bomb, but I know that now in Juggling Act, in this episode especially, if you can utilize it to its fullest, you can use it to skip an entire cycle at the end of the job, the big target that we saw that swings around and around. So that definitely saves, like, I think it saves like 12 seconds on the one cycle. Again, that's something that could probably be fact checked for the sake of information. But Sly 4, like I said, it's cool when stuff like that gets found. It's awesome to just see power-ups get utilized like that. It is a little sad to see Adrenaline Burst and things like that get turned into, I don't want to say a joke, but definitely not as influential as they were in things like Sly 2 and Sly 3. But still good to have them used, as we see Mapioto now moving on to a Murray job at long last. We're playing with a character other than Sly, and we are going into Short Supply, which also just had some pretty new tech found in the way of routes in the first part where you play as Murray, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, Remo did a lot of science on that one, as Remo does with his spreadsheets, and found the most optimal way to spawn the guards and to throw them into the vats that need to be thrown into to destroy them.
Yeah, so we'll see if Mappiotho has implemented that new science yet, or if we will see him maybe perhaps implement some older forms of routing. The old way we used to do it was you kind of just were hoping for good guard spawns. You pretty much just ran over to the left corner of the bar, and then you were waiting for 2 guys to spawn. The first 4 guards would always be consistent, and then after that, it kind of seemed like a bit of a gamble. But no more, because like I said, Remo, that man is something else. He does a lot of work for this community, and we all sincerely appreciate him for that. We all sincerely appreciate him for making a tutorial series on this game, so we all can, get better at it and be better at speedrunning it. And like I said, we'll see if Mappiotho ends up implementing that science now. Really cool that he finds little stuff like this, and that everybody finds little stuff like this to see it get implemented. As we will see Mappiotho, they're kind of doing a new route to instantly spawn these 2 porcupines. And unfortunately
missed that
there, yeah, he's just going to restart checkpoint. Yeah, it's an unfortunate break for Mappiotho. Like I said, this job, if you don't have consistent guard spawns, it honestly might be better to just... It might honestly, be better to kind of restart checkpoint like that if you're super early on in the job, just because guard spawns can feel pretty inconsistent at times if you're not manipulating them like he's doing here.
Yeah, you can see Mappiotho taking a little bit of a pause sometimes when he gets one of those guards in his hands. He's trying to get the other guards to aggro so that he can get them running towards him while he's throwing the other ones. So he'll be a little bit closer.
Still very well done, or blah, blah, blah. Nicely done, though, on the second attempt. Cleans it up a bit. Once again, an unfortunate little time loss there that will cost him a little bit of time. But Mappiotho overall still holding a pretty good lead. He is a job entry and a whole section ahead of Ostrava. I would like to see if we can get an exact estimate of time here on Restream as we head over to the second section of this job. Relatively short. It's honestly more of a Bentley portion than anything. We're just going to be backtracking to a part that we previously saw with Sly, and then doing a Bentley hack with the Spark Runner. This part hasn't changed a whole lot over the years. I believe it was Jake who also found another strategy in this job where you could sort of do a cane jump off of one of the ropes, get to the center without having to shoot an arrow, and then that would allow you to get to the computer a tiny bit faster. See if Mappiotho ends up going for this here on the left side. Looks like he will. And he gets it, very nice. No longer have to do crawl skip. This computer here, you can hit that trigger from absurdly far below. It can be a little bit finicky. You have to jump in a very precise spot sometimes in order to try and get it, but gets his way into that as we see Ostrava also thankfully pressing circle on the cinematic cutscene and moving on into the job. So, trying to think of what else we have to touch base with in this episode. Like I said, Sly 4, there definitely is still a lot of ground to be made up. It's not like if you enter Sly 4, then there's just like no room for time save and it's a done deal for one team. I think there's definitely still a lot of room to be made here. I'm trying to think, Slink, what would you say is the most influential job that's left? I was probably going to say, if people are going for advanced strats, that, why am I struggling to remember the job? Shell-Shocked Heart with Bentley. If you're going for all the trigger bomb boosts, I would definitely say that is the most influential that's left. What do you have to say about that?
I would definitely agree with you. There's a couple of those where when I was practicing this episode, when I was grinding this episode, where it definitely felt like you could lose a lot of time going for some of those. But Mappiotho is a very talented runner, a very skilled runner, so I would not be surprised to see him go for and hit everything in that job.
You see Ostrava
yeah,
having an... Go ahead.
But yeah, Mappiotho does have a pretty good lead here. I believe it's around 2.5 minutes before this job. It's maybe a little bit longer than that, but somewhere hovering around there.
I would like to say I definitely agree with you there. I do think Shell Shocked Heart is another one of those jobs that has changed quite a bit with the implementation of Trigger Bomb and how that's gone over the years. I was just going to say Ostrava there had a little bit of an unfortunate interaction with the little Paradox mouse guard. There, that can happen where if you pick him up right as he tries to shoot you, Murray will just like kind of drop him and instantly kill the guard, which is unfortunate because you have to try and find new ones. And meanwhile, we'll see Mapioto here on the left. This section is relatively consistent, at least for the first two parts. The last part can be kind of scary. He'll activate these laser walls, and if you're not very safe on the last one, you can very easily walk into the laser wall and have to redo this entire room, which can lose a bit of time. We'll see if he struggles with that at all. Hopefully not.
No, what,
Looks
what
like
you
he's
saw Mapioto do there is he found a little bit of a new strat. He like stopped his momentum, stood on something, was able to turn his camera when he destroyed it, so he knows exactly where all the lasers are. Whereas if you use Gallus' ability to destroy it, then you don't have control of the camera for a little bit, so you kind of have to wait and see what is available to you.
That was always the worry back in the day, was that like once you sprang off that hook, you always kind of had to wait, and then you couldn't just run off instantly because heaven forbid there's a laser right in your face, and then well, there goes like a minute of progress, and you have to redo that entire room. But like you said, that's definitely one of the newer strats that I unfortunately have not implemented myself yet. That I will have to work on upon my return to this game. But very cool to see Mapioto once again implementing that. Strava there looks like he might have forgotten the checkpoint, but is going back for it now. And
Yeah,
now we head to.
that's the normal route. That's the normal route.
Did he go for? Okay, I thought he. Right, he went down and he just like climbed the pole. What am I saying? I'm sorry. Yeah, that is what we used to do. Wow, am I that old? Jeez, my memory is completely failing me. I'm like, guys, this is the completely new thing, and then I forget like when I started playing this game. That's how I did that room like 1,000 times. Shadows is getting washed, ladies and gentlemen. I sincerely apologize.
Yeah, this game has had a lot of new strats come out for it over the last few months, so definitely no harm in that. It's hard to keep up with, really.
As Bentley would say during the one panicking job, Vampiric Demise in Slide 3. Mapioto also, he's kind of scaring me here with how close he's getting to some guards and getting out of his range in this job. But yeah, as Bentley would say in the one job, like I know you've been out of the game for a while, which unfortunately for me has been the case. I have not gone back to my roots in Sly 4 for quite some time now, which is a shame because of all the amazing work that runners in the community have tried to do in order to improve this game even more than it already has been and to make it even faster of a speedrun, a more consistent speedrun. So I would definitely like to get back into it in a while. And little stuff like that just goes to show that, hey, there's always more stuff to learn. There's probably going to be a lot more developments in the future. And I'm very happy to see that people are still taking advantage of new developments and making it go very faster. So, yeah, very faster.
Yeah, I mean, for this game, we thought that things were about as fast as they were going to be for a while, and I think world record dropped 5.5 minutes over the last few months. Shout out Beaver and Remo who were grinding the game. I also believe that Mapioto there was doing like a fake 100% route in the auto stroller slide part of this job, pretending like he was doing the 100% route, but not quite
Like,
getting the actual models.
I was wondering what he was doing. It kind of looked like that. He kind of went over to where you get the first bottle, and then he went under the bridge. He looked like he was going to get the one where you fall in the water. So kind of like a little bit of makeshift 100%. So interesting there from Mapioto. I mean, hey, as long as he doesn't fail the job and cost his team a lot of time, then by all means, he can have a little bit of fun with this. I'm glad that all the runners here seem to be having a bit of fun with this, and I'm having a lot of fun with this too. Great to be here. Strava, we see
Yeah.
meanwhile trying to navigate this laser floor, and that is a pretty nasty time loss there, as he's going to have to destroy some of these fuses once again and try to clean up this room while Mapioto navigates the rafters of that room with Trigger Bomb. Oh boy.
Yeah, so these cycles are now no longer consistent. That
Oh my
Strava's been hit.
gosh.
Would be better off restarting checkpoint. But
And also, like, with where he's going, you see he had to run back to the first fuse. Like, if he had restarted checkpoint, he would have been back there immediately, like you said, and also with the cycles, but then he had to run back and forth between the two fuses, try and do this again. Hopefully here, this is the last one now. Hopefully he's doing it the old way. He won't get hit by any of these lasers. Looks like he's going to escape just fine, but a couple of laser hits by Ostrava there, and he's unfortunately losing a little bit of ground in this episode, Link.
yeah, definitely a little bit, but not an insurmountable amount.
Oh, absolutely not. Like I said, it's unfortunate to see, but don't get me wrong, folks. We have a very long way to go. Sly 2, Episode 3, of course, having a very high skill ceiling. The same deal for Sly 1, or, oh my gosh, Sly 4, Episode 1, having a very high skill ceiling as well, which, yeah, I guess maybe while we're kind of shifting between loading screens here and doing some more trigger bombing and rail sprinting and waiting with the Black Knight over here, let's speculate a tiny bit. So, Slink, if you had to take a guess for both teams, who do you think is lining up for the episodes that are left? Because to me, at least, this doesn't seem quite as obvious as some pairings in the last few matchups.
Yeah, I would say I'm confident that Stevens is going for 2-3. Stevens has been playing a lot of Sly 2 lately. I believe he's almost ready for full game. Only has a couple more episodes to learn. So he's definitely been playing a decent amount. And then they'll give Bacon Man the 4-1 nod there. The Buccaneers, I really don't know. I know PS2 Professor has done a little bit of Sly 4 in this competition, I believe. And 4-1 would be the one to do it on, but I also know Nave is more experienced with Sly 4, and maybe PS2 Professor has been playing some Sly 2 Episode 3, so it's really hard to tell.
Yeah, no, it definitely is difficult to speculate. I know Nave, he has had some experience with Sly 4, and of course I would know because I've seen him run the game in the past during Tituary and whatnot. Not a super consistent Sly 4 runner. I don't think that that's his like go-to game or anything like that, but he definitely does have the experience. Professor PS2, I'm not quite as familiar with his resume. But yes, on the right side with the Kunlun Vampires, I definitely think that's more than likely going to be the scenario. I know Stevens, of course, advertising the community race with Sly 2 with the upcoming 20th anniversary of that game. Geez, I'm so old. But yeah, I definitely would think that Stevens is probably going to show up on that one as well. And then Bacon Man, I'm not entirely familiar with Bacon Man's resume on Sly 4. Like I said, I, I was just expecting him to pick a Sly 3 episode because that's what I've seen him do. Now, if he has had more experience with Sly 4 than I may realize, then that's wonderful, and I'm very excited to see how he would perform in that, should that be the pick. But like I said, with that episode being, like, having such a high skill ceiling, I think it's just going to be a really interesting development. Something else that's worth noting is that I don't know if Nave has the PAL version of Sly 3, so or of Sly 4, excuse me. So he may be stuck running on English for episode 1, which, while not a killer by any means, it's not ridiculously unoptimal. It's still not as optimal as Bacon potentially playing on the PAL version and rocking the Swedish language, per se.
Yeah, I mean, I know Bacon Man has done a lot of Sly 4, just either preparing for Fectas. I know Bacon Man is a huge Fecta runner. Um, has done a Vita Fecta, I believe, or at least played one of the games on Vita. So wouldn't be surprised to see that being the pick there. And looking at their respective, if we were correct, the PBs between on episode 1 of Sly 4 between Bacon Man and Nave, it's about a minute difference, but with a lot of the new strats, kind of depends on how often that they've played recently, if they've played recently.
Now, humor me on this as we see Mappiotho on the left side, unfortunately missing a quick kill. Strava also coming up on a very annoying part of the hack where you have to manage some drones in order to not get blasted or not have your line broke as you're trying to destroy these nodes. But forgive me for asking, but who has the minute advantage in PDs for Sly 4? Is it Nave or is it Bacon Man?
Bacon Man has the 1 minute advantage there.
Oh my goodness. All right. So in that case, ladies and gentlemen, I sincerely apologize. As we saw Strava there, that's the thing that can happen, unfortunately, with the drones. You don't kill them all once. This room can get very annoying where you have to try and manage them constantly so they don't break your line. My sincere apologies then for underestimating Bacon's Sly 4 resume. I was not aware that he had prepared for Sly 4 as much as he had been for Fectas and whatnot. But yeah, Bacon Man, of course, I've talked to him a tiny bit. He's a very respectable runner, and I'm sure that he has definitely practiced a lot of the games for an event like this. So yeah, when the chips are down and when everything is coming to playoffs or no playoffs, we'll see if all that experience pays off from the sound of it. it definitely sounds like he may have a bit of an advantage going into that. So down the line, we'll see what the stakes are. We'll see how he faces up with that. As Matt Biotto on the left side is finishing up what I thought was a pretty clean shell-shocked heart, aside from, of course, messing around a little bit on the outdoor section. Didn't really notice too many big mistakes on his side of the screen.
Yeah, I mean, consider my shell shocked. I can't believe Penelope was the Black Knight this whole time.
What? Oh my gosh. You're right. This is like how could this have ever happened? I'm genuinely I'm so heartbroken. Penelope was our friend. She was a great companion in the last game. We saved her from okay, you know what? That's also really ironic is that the two episodes in Sly 3 that we didn't pick are the two episodes where like she gets kidnapped by a giant dragon and then she gets kidnapped by pirates. And then in return, the first episode we go to is the one where she turns evil. There's something about that. Maybe I'm the only person who finds something a little bit funny about that, but I just think it's kind of cool how that works out. But more importantly, moving on to the hack here, Ostrava is going to be sitting there for a while until he gets to the quick kill because that's how Ultra Ego is. And Mappiotho, we are going to see moving on to Hard Target, which I believe also has another new displacement boost. Not that one, but or not displacement boost. Excuse me. Mappiotho as well. Like he's been really clean with those displacement boosts early in the run. But should he choose to do it, I believe there is a new disguise jump that he found at this tower once you regain control of Sly. Oh my gosh, he did another one there. I think he
Yeah, that looked dangerous. That's what he was about to fly across the map.
I think he thought he was in the wrong spot on the job to try and do that.
Yes, but there is another new hideout warp, I believe they're calling it in this job as well. I also wanted to point out that the chat over at Sly Golds is a little bit mixed opinion on Penelope over there. That's about all I'll say about what the chat's saying about Penelope.
Also, I apologize. I definitely said disguise jump instead of costume launch is the proper term. Gosh, can you tell I've been playing way too much Sly 3 as of late, folks? But yes, costume launch. Yeah, I think chat definitely is a little bit kind of sus, if I do say so myself, as far as the comments on Penelope, a little bit back and forth. I don't really know if I have any special things to say about a fictional assortment of polygons that I don't know in real life, especially considering now that she's pretty evil. I mean, maybe some people are into that, breaking your heart with a glass foot or something like that that Andy said. Meanwhile, we're gonna see Mappiotho see if he can get an ICSS here, and he gets it! That is a one frame trick that Mappiotho just got on the left side. You have to pause it, I believe, exactly 21 frames or 22 frames after launching off of that. Mappiotho having a pretty good hard target as he gets that. And of course, he got the displacement boost earlier, having a little bit of a mishap, of course, with the disguise jump, but very clean work by Mappiotho on the left side as he goes into archery.
Yeah, the ICSS is technically not optimal anymore. It's actually more optimal to just let the cutscene play out and then go for the hideout warp. Does you want you won't warp to the hideout? You'll warp to the vine that Gallup was previously on. But that is an even tougher trick. It's also like a 1 or 2 frame trick with basically no cue. There's like a vague visual cue of the screen going black. But it is technically more optimal to do that just by a little bit than getting the ICSS. But the ICSS is does make it a little bit easier.
My goodness, that's almost unbelievable to think of, like how big of a skip that was back in the day, at least back when old Shadows was running Sly 4, and nowadays it seemed like everything is changing before my eyes. I really got to get back into this game, Slink. I've been doing myself a disservice, so thank you for correcting me on that. But yeah, Mappiotho also we saw with archery. We'll talk about that a little bit more as Ostrava gets over there. Can also be a fairly difficult section as it's going to take a lot of practice for you to get that very, very consistently, and so it can definitely give you a lot of trouble if you have not practiced it. But meanwhile, I don't want to speculate on how the rest of this race is going to go, but Mappiotho now going into Operation Ostrava, finishing up Shell Shocked Heart. He has a full job ahead right now for the Buccaneers, and so Ostrava, they're taking another death as well. When it comes to 2-3 for the Vampires, they're definitely going to have some catching up to do. Oh, on Ostrava there, we also see falling out the back. Can he shoot the targets from down there?
I believe
Uh-oh.
you can, as long as he doesn't
Looks
move too much. Yeah, there you go.
okay. Oof. I actually didn't know if you... I've never tried to shoot the targets from down there. I actually didn't know if that was a viable option for you to do or not. So thankfully for Ostrava and thankfully for the Vampires, he was able to kind of save that there. So good on him as he also heads to hard target, and we'll see how he does on that.
Yeah, most of the time I end up down there, I end up getting caught by... Oh my god, it's Penelope. But
Oh my god.
yeah, so haven't shot from down there.
Yeah, no, that's definitely that can be a little bit misleading if you're not super familiar with that. The back of that little catwalk there doesn't have collision, as you're not intended to really get back there. You're intended to just shoot the targets in the front, obviously. So I guess I didn't really feel like putting stuff back there, but oh well. At the very least, he did not fail the job, and he is getting through to that now. Meanwhile, Mappiotho over here is heading towards a relatively consistent boss fight. I don't know how much there is to say about this, besides you can be a little bit more optimal if you get some ledge grabs on the way up, but really for Mappiotho, this is just line up your shots right, and if you know the timing for some circle boosts on these ropes, you've got it down pat, and so hopefully we'll see him carry that out here.
Yeah, this is a fairly straightforward operation. Not a ton of time variance here. Well, there's some optimizations with that ledge grab there when coming off the trampoline, but for the most part, not a lot to it.
So Mappiotho will clean that up here, just breaking off some shoulder pads here. We're trying to clean up this. And for what we're seeing now for who's coming up, Slink, it looks like that speculation we were doing was right on, as Professor PS2 is gearing up to head into the jungle to try and track down Rajan, as is Mr. Evans Stevens in preparation for his anniversary race with Sly 2. So going to be great to see that, and that of course means that we will indeed see a Knave versus Bacon Man head-to-head match in the finale in what is possibly one of the most skill-heavy episodes, barring this one and barring maybe 4 or 5 in the entire game. So that is going to be a very interesting finale. Sly 4 otherwise, as we see Ostrava unfortunately missing, or what am I saying? He paused the game during the second tower. You can't skip the cutscene on that one. I for some reason would have thought that meant he was at the last tower, but it's not. My fault once again. Yeah, so Slink, I guess kind of previewing the next episode here as we see our 2 runners finishing up. How are you feeling about 2-3, and what should our wonderful people in chat know about the episode?
You know, I'm feeling like this is going to be a really close race between the next 2 episodes that are going to be happening. I'm taking a look over at speedrun.com right now, trying to find the PBs for our runners, Ostrava and PS2 Professor. Just give us a little bit of insight on maybe how much they've been playing it. I will get back to you when I have that information.
Of course, my wonderful commentator in arms. Thank you very much for going out of your way to try and get that information. I will keep the wonderful chats postponed. I will keep them updated on what is going on right now. This boss fight, meanwhile, on the left does not have too much technical stuff to it. Really, if you know what time to punch, then you'll be able to get through this just fine, and there's a section of mashing square at the end. In Mappiotho's case, he doesn't even have to skip the cutscene at the very end of the fight, although you can. We only really do that in full game runs. Geez, Remo putting some very suspicious comments in chat. Almost looked like he was calling out a team there, but saved the commentary there for 1 minute as we see Mappiotho delivering the finishing blow and setting Professor PS2 loose into the wild jungle of Sly 2 Episode 3. GG's to Mappiotho. Very, very well played. Episode 4 in England in Sly 4. Once again, folks, that is arguably the single hardest episode in the entire game for Sly 4. A lot of difficult jobs, like Juggling Act, of course, which he, unfortunately, in that run had a little bit of a struggle with, but for a majority of other jobs in that run, very, very well executed by Mappiotho, so good to see him finish that. As we will see, hopefully Ostrava can get a good archery and finish this out here for the sake of the Vampires. As we see Professor PS2 head into the jungle for 2-3, and the first job where he will go and take a picture of Rajan. Not too much to comment on for the first job here. It's going to go by pretty quick, as do most jobs in Slide 2 speedrun. Shoutouts to Mr. Beaver GG as well for the epic world record most recently in Slide 2. I was actually just watching a episode 3 run in full, so gonna try and have some of that knowledge fresh in my mind as I try to commentate on a Slide 2 episode here. This is unfortunately a game that I am a little bit less familiar with as far as the speed run, but as far as the jobs and whatnot, I will hopefully have you guys up to speed on that, and hopefully as well on the left side of the screen, Professor PS2's screen is okay as we see him get to the pictures now.
Yes, looks to be fine. I do have that information for you. Stevens does not have a verified run on the boards, but as of 8 days ago, Professor has a pretty decent time, around the top 50. And there's a lot of runs in this episode. There's over 70 runs in this episode, so pretty decent time there.
Absolutely no. Slide 2, of course, being probably, besides Slide 1, I would say is probably the most popular speed game of the 4 games in the series. And the episode runs are definitely a little bit more popular than the full game run, perhaps. But yeah, Professor PS2 getting out of the way there, and now going on to...
Yeah, if we were to believe the chat, saying Stevens is a 31 in this episode, Professor PS2 is a 36. So that's a pretty significant difference. That could mean a lot coming into this. It almost seems like the vampires actually have the advantage in the next episodes based off PVs, but it will depend on how much practice each person's been able to get in their respective episodes. Again, the skill ceiling is very high, so tough to get away.
Absolutely, you make a wonderful point there, which I guess at this time I am a bit late for doing this, but we should talk a little bit more about the overall implications of the winners and losers of this match. We already mentioned at the beginning of the match, for the 2 teams in question here, the Buccaneers have already clinched a playoff spot. There's no mistaking that. They are in no matter what. The lowest they can finish is a tie for 5th place, but with a 16 playoff, they are in no matter what. They are set there. The Buccaneers, if anything, are playing for a first round bye. If they get to 3-1, what they would need to happen then is they would need the Sabres to defeat the Venice Vipers, and they would need the Cottonmouth Bluff Jackalopes to defeat the Australian Outback, and they would be the 2nd seed in the ACES playoffs, therefore granting them a first round bye. The Vampires, of course, meanwhile, like I said, they have to win absolutely to get in. Should the Vampires win, however, there is a lot more that happens in terms of playoff development. If the Buccaneers win, then any team in the playoff fray that has 2 wins is guaranteed to be in. So in other words, with a Bloodbath Buccaneers win, we only have 1 playoff spot left, and that will go to the winner of the Prague Bombers and the Nunavut Lumberjacks, a team that I had the pleasure of commentating earlier in the season, a team that Mr. Slink is very familiar with, as he is a proud member of that team. Meanwhile, on the other hand, if the Kunlun Vampires come out with a victory today, things get a little bit more complicated. With a Vampires win, as I mentioned before, they are in the playoffs with a win, and that is guaranteed to eliminate the Prague Bombers. They cannot make the playoffs if the Vampires win. And the Nunavut Lumberjacks are all but out of the playoffs as well if the Vampires win. I say all but because Nunavut can still technically make it on a bunch of tiebreakers, but they need a lot of help. They need to win their first match. First of all, they need to win their matchup versus the Prague Bombers to even have a shot, and then they need a vast majority of other teams to win in order to help them out. That, of course, however, is very far into the future, and I will not talk much about that, both for the health of Slink's mental state, no offense, and for the sake of making sure that we focus on the match at hand, because nothing is set in stone, and there's no use speculating right now about something that may or may not come to fruition. So for the time being, we can focus on Ostrava here, having a pretty decent boss fight and trying to finish this up here. And Professor PS2, unfortunately, actually falling down there, going for one of the spice plants. That is a unfortunate break there. What he was trying to do is there is some pretty cool movement. You can, after you get that 1 flower up there, there's 2 more spice plants that you can get in the tall trees. The casual way is you're intended to climb a tower in the center of the map. The cool way, aka the speedrun way that we're trying to do here, is we are going to square boost off of this tree, or I guess you can glitch high jump and make it as Professor PS2 does there. And you can then kind of climb your way backwards onto the tower to get the spice plants and clean them up from there. And so Professor PS2 will now do some jumps in order to get back to the other spice plant, as we see Ostrava delivering some rightfully deserved punches to a horrible mouse. Sorry, Penelope fans, but she betrayed us. She deserved it. He's got to get the punches. And don't punch women, kids. That's terrible. Don't do it. You'll get in trouble. And it's also just very bad. Anyways, more importantly, Ostrava finishing up here, and Professor PS2 feeding the elephant some very not nice things into his feed bag, and he will move on to a relatively fast job, if you're careful with it, in Bug Rajan's office, as Ostrava will finish up with some last few punches to the body of the Black Knight and set Mr. Even Stevens free into the jungle, where he will hopefully be able to compete and close this gap a little bit for the vampires.
Yeah, Mappiotto did a great job there, giving his team a healthy lead. We'll see what happens here. Like I said, the advantage in PBs seems to be on the side of the vampires, but Mappiotto has given a pretty significant lead here, so we'll see if it's enough.
Yeah, we will definitely see if it is enough. Like I said, outside of, I really think, Juggling Act, where he unfortunately had a handful of trouble with the ring jumps, and that in turn lead to him missing a couple of cycles at the last section, had a really good EP4 besides that. Ostrava, unfortunately, having a few more mistakes and also getting a little bit stuck there with Stevens on the right side. I don't know if I've ever seen that before, getting kind of stuck behind the little drainage pipe that you crawl through, but cleaning it up there. And we will really see finally if we'll see if Stevens can put that PB to the test, and we will see if he can definitely close some time there. We already saw Professor PS2 having a little bit of unfortunate trouble trying to get to the second spice plant, and now he is going to have to navigate inside of the office. From my understanding, there's not a... Okay, who am I kidding? There's a lot that can go wrong with this job. As you can see here, like there with Professor PS2 as he gets sniped by a guard sword, and that is going to send him all the way back up to where he got the bug. He's going to have to try it again. The water bug can only survive outside of water for so long, so... Oh, no, Professor missing a square boost and taking another death there in the river. This is looking real bad for the Buccaneers right now, as Professor having a little bit of a struggle with the first two jobs of this episode, Slink.
Yeah, I mean, I feel for Professor here. This is probably my least favorite job in all of Sly when I was playing it casually. I could not stand Water Bug Run. This entire episode was extremely difficult as a casual player, whether as a kid or as an adult. And I have not played it in the speed run, but I do know that it is one of the higher skill ceiling ones. But yeah, that job, typically gets turned into not as difficult in the speed run, but I remember it casually, so I definitely feel for the losses there.
I definitely feel that too. Waterbug Run, especially, I remember what I always tried to do was, as a kid, I think I always tried to kind of take it around the really long way. I went up to where you got one of the spice plants in that one job, and I tried to climb all the way around where the ruby is and get to the office that way. The problem was some guards would spawn up there, and so as a kid, I didn't know guards were kind of a joke. I would always be scared to kind of go up and like them killing me trying to get the water bug out. But speedrunners, of course, with some new strategies and with some confidence under their belt, they can hopefully do a lot better than I did as a kid. As now we see Professor PS2 is going to try a little bit of a unique jump here to try and boost himself up to this bridge. I know in a previous round he actually played this episode and had a little bit of struggle with this jump, so we will have to see if he can get this time for the sake of keeping his team in the lead. Looking like right now he's having a little bit of trouble with it, just trying to line up to be safe. Looks like he's going to get it this time. And also looking like he's going to attempt the leading Rajan cutscene skip. Now, this is a really difficult trick, as we see there. Professor also falling into the water. Going to have to try and menu buffer this job trigger again. But the basic gist of this job for this skip, for those of you who may not know, is basically we're doing some menu shenanigans here, which unfortunately the Professor is not going to be successful with, but usually doing some menu shenanigans, you could set your ground position there, and then using some super jumps to try and get away from that job trigger without making sure you fall back there. you can throw a bomb in front of that door right there where Rajan spawns. It'll kill him, and since you can't hit Rajan during this job, it'll fail the job. Professor, unfortunately, yeah, taking a few tries to get the water bug, taking a few tries to get up to that job trigger, and then failing the cutscene skip. Stevens is definitely making up some ground here, make no mistake. So Professor, hopefully he's going to have some more consistency here for the sake of the Buccaneers, but Vampires are definitely gaining some ground here.
Steven's looking a little bit there like he didn't quite know where to go. But yeah, definitely getting a little bit more leeway. But still a pretty significant lead out, I feel like, for the Buccaneers. And we did have a bingo in chat. Beaver got his bingo off I believe the missed cutscene skip. So congrats to Beaver on the bingo.
Yes, congrats to Mr. Sly 2 in the Sly 2 episode, and his reward will be a glorious, glorious prize. And by that, I of course just mean VIP, which we'll see how much that means to him when he's already a moderator, but now he's just stacking up the swag. Now he's both a VIP and a moderator. So congratulations to Beaver, and congratulations to anybody else who happens to win those wonderful prizes during our races here. As we see Stevens trying to clean up the spice flowers here, not having as much trouble as Professor did, it seems, with the routing. Like you said, I think he had a little bit of a mental check when he was trying to get from flower 3 to flower 4. But besides that, Stevens looking to move along just fine. We'll have to see how well or how poorly perhaps he ends up doing with the next two jobs, and if he can end up closing much ground on Professor here. And Professor also looks like he's having looks like he's having a little bit of a scare here, trying to lead Rajan over to this third watermelon. Looks like he's just going to try and play it safe, not going to try and fail the job, as Rashawn is having a little bit of trouble really trying to find that watermelon, even though it's 2 feet in front of him. But Professor PS2 is going to finish up the job here and get on to day 2. As he will sneak that blueprint right there.
Yes, it did occur to me that we're going to be fighting 2 Tigers, I believe, in this relay race.
You are correct. We are going to be fighting Rajan, the OG, and then afterwards we are going to be fighting not Rajan. It's going to be wonderful. I don't want to diss the Sly 4 villains too much, but I have never liked a lot of them, and I thought El Jefe really was just kind of a worse Rajan. I always thought he was kind of a joke, whereas as a kid, I was genuinely scared of Rajan at some points. You know, like, he's intimidating. He throws lightning bolts at you in this episode, for crying out loud. He's like very intimidating, absolutely trash talks Murray. Rajan, I think, is a great villain. El Jefe, I'm not so sure. I don't know if you agree with that, Slink, or if you're kind of disagreeing with that. What do you think about that?
I think the El Jefe boss fight is incredible and really well done.
Yes.
But as far as the characterization goes, I can't really remember about what I was feeling as a kid. I feel like it was probably similar to you, where it was scared of Rajan, but yeah, very close there for Stevens to have pretty much the same thing happen to him that happened to Professor. But
I was going to say, we just saw that same guard spawn happen to the Professor, and unfortunately Professor PS2 getting sniped there. Stevens having a little bit more luck, he was able to dodge that snipe. Yeah, like I said, I think El Jefe has some really cool powers, and I honestly do like a lot of the boss fights in Sly 4. They're different from 2 and 3 for sure, where like you can't just wail on the bosses, you really have to wait for certain openings, but I like them. And I think, especially when it comes to the speedrun, having a very, very clean El Jefe boss fight, there's not much better than it, especially when you're under that kind of pressure and you really get that one cycle. It's such a rewarding feeling. So that's again another reason why I'm really looking forward to 4-1, both seeing it in a Sly Gold's Aces race and also just getting to commentate one. It's going to be wonderful, as we see Stevens here also going for the same super jump cutscene skip here. Looks like he did, in fact, get to the trigger all right. He's not going to end up resetting the super jump chain. Looks okay so far. He's going to end up destroying this block he's standing on. We'll have to see if he can set it up. Assuming he didn't drop the super jump chain, this should be good.
Very nice.
And he nails it. Very nice job. Yeah, big time differential being made up there from Stevens as he hits some big skips and starts to close the gap even more on Professor PS2 and the Buccaneers.
You could see the Sly 1 runner come out of Stevens there when you're doing super jumps, pressing square and X.
Hey, I mean, if it works, it works, and he's definitely making it work so far. Knock on wood, of course, for the Vampire's sake, but there is definitely still a long way to go, folks. Make no mistake. So, Stevens, we'll have to see if he can keep making up time like this. We still have a long way to go. PS2, of course, on the left, finishing up below the dam. A pretty consistent job. Really, all you have to do is just make sure you're mashing R1 at a decent rate, and you should be pretty okay. And now we get to a lot more interesting jobs. Day 2 of episode 3 in Sly 2. I feel like this is where you really start to see a lot more of that skill you came in to talk about, Slink.
Yeah, I mean, and the movement in this episode can just get really, really satisfying. It's the first episode where you have Stealth Slide, which is probably one of the cooler abilities in the series, I think. They tried to, recreate it with Rocket Boots in Sly 3, but I don't think it has the same thing going on with it. As we see Stevens there miss actually a skip. If you're holding the bomb there when Rajan gets up there, you can actually skip this animation and it just collects the little piece of paper.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he wasn't attempting it or if he was foregoing it, but either way, beg your pardon, Stevens finishing up that job there and getting to where he needs to be as he continues to go forward with the episode. Remo saying in chat that Sly 4 copied Sly 1 boss fights. Honestly, when you put it like that, when we kind of said about you can't just wail on the bosses, you kind of have to go for them at certain times, is honestly not too far from the truth. It's kind of interesting to see them take different aspects like that from all 3 games in Sly 4's development. As we see Professor PS2 there having a little bit of trouble blowing up these little fences. You can have a little bit of trouble with these, although you can instantly detonate these TNT barrels by doing what he's doing, by jumping and instantly swinging your cane. So going for this. I believe there is also a more difficult strat. There's one laser wall to the far right of his position at the very start. If you do some weird, like almost damage boosting, I want to say, you can actually walk through the laser floor with a TNT barrel and blow something up, which will save a little bit of time, as we saw Professor had to blow up multiple walls in order to get where he needed to be to get to this cutscene, but the optimal route would do something different. Of course, no shame on Professor for doing that. I definitely couldn't do much better. And we'll see how he fares in the rest of this job as Stevens gets to blow the dim. So, Slink, we've kind of talked so far more about optimal jobs here, but what are you most looking forward to in this episode? I think there's still a lot of difficult parts of jobs left in this episode, but for me personally, I'm looking forward to seeing the Rajan fight.
Yeah, Rajan fight is huge. I mean, I think there's even an emote out there called Rajan Choke. So it's just very. I feel like, I haven't personally played it, but I feel like that it's kind of a barrier in the speed run. It seems kind of straightforward, but it's quite a difficult boss fight and quite easy to die. So that's definitely a big one. I feel like rip off the Ruby cutscene skip. I feel like, even though you see most runners hit that first try, I feel like this might be a situation where the runners are fairly new, and so even some of those, quote unquote easier cutscene skips might cause some problems.
Yeah, no, nothing is ever trivial in Sly 2, let's be real. I think there's some people that would argue that this is perhaps the biggest, this is the most skill-dependent game in the entire series, which is very difficult to, really pin down considering Sly 1 exists and considering, I don't think there's really an easy game in the Sly series as far as speedruns go, per se, but Sly 2, the one thing that kind of stinks about it is that it is the hardest to practice by far. There's no real sort of job select, and there's no real practice tools. Even with Sly 1, with it being such a different style, you can always just go back to levels and practice different hard strats like Clockwork Jump and Bentley Skip. Sly 2, though, yeah, nothing really like that, and so when you get to a very heavily, a very skill-heavy episode such as this, it really puts your skills to the test, and so that's why it's really interesting to see people go out and try to run this episode the best they can, especially in a setting like this.
Yeah, I mean, I will say shout out Kanuti, who is actually building Sly 2 and Sly 3 practice schools. which will be extremely, extremely helpful.
Big shout outs to the amazing coders we have in the Sly community. Nudie, of course, as well with the practice tools. Very noteworthy shout out, so I'm very happy we got that into the stream. If you are watching the broadcast right now, Nudie, we love you. We love a lot of people in this community. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for being here. So yeah, I definitely think that would be much appreciated if I could jailbreak a PS3 and have access to that myself if that becomes public. I know I would definitely use that. Sly 2, for whatever reason, is one game that I've always found myself foregoing as far as the speedrun scene. With me recently completing a full game run of Sly 3, I think this is now the only game in the series that I have yet to do a full game speedrun for. And I don't know what's kept me away from it, honestly, especially with seeing just all the cool episode runs and all the different strats, the movement tech and glitch high jumping and square boosting. I don't know, Slink, what do you think is the main appeal of Sly 2, now that we're sitting here talking about it as far as the speedrun?
Oh, I mean, it's probably got the best movement in any of the games. It's just like you said earlier. I believe it's very skill-based movement, and can just be very, very clean. Whereas some other games, Sly 1 might be more trick-heavy. Sly 3 is very cutscene skip-based. And then Sly 4 is also movement, but we don't quite have the movement tech that they have in this game between stealth slide, square boosts, glitch high jumps. Just unlock a lot more with the game. So I feel like that's the main appeal of it. I feel like maybe the idea of getting Korean might be difficult for some people, because I know that even control changes some of the control schemes, and obviously not a lot of people in this community will be able to read it if they're not familiar with the game before getting the Korean version. So there's definitely a lot going on there as well.
I definitely I get you on that. I was lucky enough to be able to access a Korean copy of Sly 2 thanks to the Gandhi Man, our wonderful producer and the man behind this whole idea of the ACES competition. So big shout outs to him for being such a giga chad and for just allowing me to have access to this game in a whole new way that I never thought I would be able to. But yeah, I know that some people definitely aren't a huge fan of the Korean dub and that they aren't a fan of the sort of control change. Stevens having a massive save there, almost getting blasted away by that spotlight. Good on him to save that. So making up for that there. But yeah, no, I definitely do think besides all the practice tools not being there, like you said, I do think that Sly 2 is very skill based. And while that necessarily isn't a detriment, I think that just makes it more rewarding when you finally get good at a game. Just ask a lot of people who have gotten top times how that feels. I think that there is a certain sort of caveat to having that on top of the game being so long, on top of having to do a lot of extracurricular stuff. I don't know. When you compare it to a lot of other speedruns, it's not, I don't feel like it's super taxing, but there definitely are still a lot of underlying factors to it to consider. As we see Professor there having a tiny bit of trouble with those guards, you would normally see some wacko movement to square boost across the room and get those keys without much hassle. Does end up getting them though, and now he is going to unlock the winch to get the first half of Clockwork's heart. And Steven's now on the same job, technically. Professor is about to finish up this job right now, but for a moment there, those two were on the same job. So this gap has definitely gotten smaller within this episode. So shout outs to Stevens, for being so young in this game. Definitely seems like he's got some skill under his belt already.
Yeah, definitely having a fairly clean episode so far. That's for sure. Haven't noticed too many things go wrong for Stevens on that side.
Like I said, I know some people earlier they commented on I think his movement with the tusk when he was going to one of the spice plants in Spice Grinder Destruction. No, that's not Spice Grinder Destruction. Oh my gosh, remembering job names. That should be what that should be a bingo square. Is like if Shadows is commentating a match every time he forgets a job name, that should be a bingo square. But that job, you guys know what I'm talking about. Elephant Ramp. That's not even Elephant Rampage. That's episode 2. Oh my gosh, that job. You know what I'm talking about? That job. People were commenting on his movement there, and a bunch of other people are probably going to start commenting on my commentary as I mess up the job names. But yeah, definitely doing all right there. How do you feel, meanwhile, Slink, about this job? You were talking about the cutscene skip. What is there to know about Rip Off the Ruby?
Yeah, to my knowledge, being a viewer of Sly 2 speedruns, you get Murray positioned in a way where you can turnbuckle launch and do a slam down onto the ruby, which you do when you enter the cutscene trigger, so that when it tries to play the cutscene, the ruby's already destroyed. Very similar to a lot of the other cutscene skips we do across the series, where you kill the character you're playing as, or kill guards, or destroy something to skip the cutscenes or to explain that thing.
We'll see Professor PS2 now attempt to do that, and he does do just that, destroying the ruby and skipping the cutscene. So very nicely done by him. Takes the time to line that up, but very worth it. Yeah, this job has been the producer for some very, very noteworthy moments across the entire community throughout the years, some more than others. Mr. Aguiardino can tell you a few things about that. I won't run that joke into the ground for this episode, but yeah, no, definitely a very interesting job. And the second to last one before we really get to the Rajan fight, and we will have to see people put their skills to the test even more.
And we do get some information from the chat, from Remo himself, saying that turnbuckle launch is not required for that cutscene skip.
It's not. Ooh. Well, there's your fact of the day for all of the wonderful people in chat. Remo, of course, being the infinite database of Sly knowledge and spreadsheets that he is. Very, very fun fact there. I honestly didn't know that. I really would have thought you actually needed turnbuckle launch to do that cutscene skip, but no. The more you know. Guess that's good reference for the first ever Sly 2 run I do, where I somehow forget to buy turnbuckle launch and I can still do rip off the Ruby cutscene skip. It'll be all good. Steven's
Remo says that it is still free without turnbuckle launch, which free for Remo, I don't know if is free for the rest of us. But
I won't. I can't comment too much on that because I haven't run the game myself, so I won't say too much on that front. Professor PS2, meanwhile, we see trying to navigate around those guards. That can be a little bit scary if you have too many guys around you. They can definitely try and break that ruby, and that can end in disaster. But thankfully, no such thing happens for him and the Buccaneers, and he will move on to Operation Wet Tiger, as Stevens, meanwhile, claiming his half of the clockwork part and moving on to this very job.
yeah, definitely can get scary there at the end when you're throwing the ruby to the last spot with those guards. But luckily, they were in a good spot there for Professor and didn't have any trouble with them.
Yeah. I wonder how likely it is while you're speed running Neela's Secret, that section there. How likely is it that somebody misses a square boost and then you fall all the way down to the other section of the job? I remember as a kid, I definitely did that once or twice where if you go down there, there's actually a lot of weird geometry that maybe not everybody knows about. There's some like rudders you can jump onto and some other sort of winches and gears you can, and then like if you do fall down there, you kind of have to ride the pail all the way back up. I don't know if I've seen that happen to anybody in the speed run per se, but I remember as a kid that just felt super annoying.
I feel like I've seen it once or twice. I feel like it was run killing because I don't believe there's a way up if you get all the way down to the bottom. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do remember it being a run killer at least.
Because I remember the way you have to get back up there casually is you basically have to run halfway back up the way that you go to the spot where you take Rajan's pictures casually, and then you can like ride that little water pail back up. But even then, that's just really, really slow, and in a speed run, it kind of defeats the whole purpose. So for episode runs, at least, I can definitely see that being a huge run killer. As we see Stevens attempt a Thunderflop cutscene skip to rip off the Ruby and gets it with ease, as apparently it is free according to multiple Sly 2 runners in chat. I will take their word for it.
Yeah, we also want to shout out the Gandhi Man and the Bieber_GG Sly 2 tutorial. Apparently does show a way to get back up to the top.
Let's go. Yes, we are all hoping for that series to come back and for our wonderful commentators there to do more great work on it. Series has been great. We've had a lot of tutorial series produced by a variety of people in the Sly community, so give them all some love. Shout outs to Neon for his tutorials in Sly 1, for Nudie to his tutorials in Sly 3, and of course Mr. Remo Christian as well for his tutorials on Sly 4. Tutorials all around, and we're really hoping that such skilled, awesome guys like Gandhi and Beaver are able to find the time to keep doing what they love and are able to help more people to get into speedrunning this awesome game. So shout out to
we
those
also
guys
can't
for sure.
forget shout out Augie Arena for the Sly 2 tutorial. It's
Absolutely.
quite old at this point now, but still, it's a tutorial.
Oh, definitely is a tutorial. My apologies as well for misremembering that. Or, well, not misremembering because he did make one, but my apologies as well for putting that in the back of my mind. I definitely do remember referencing that tutorial a good bit. Funny enough, I think that's how I learned some of the new Cairo movement. I definitely use that as a reference for jobs like Follow Dimitri and a whole lot of stuff. So definitely a good reference, but once again, with a lot of new information found in Sly 2 and such, things have to get updated, and so it's great to see people trying to update that across all of the games as well. Meanwhile, on the left side here, Professor just taking some precautions here. Like, okay, not even precautions. Thanks to guard spell manipulation, you can just kind of get all the guards out of the way and walk this Cherry Bomb 500 over to the mouth of the ravine here. So not too much to worry about as far as getting shot. I remember as a kid, this section felt just like completely luck-based and really annoying because you'd be walking for like half the distance. Some random flashlight guard would get in your way and then you'd just be stuck sitting there for like a minute and just hope he would move somewhere else. But nowadays, the speedrun, pretty easy. The professor's just going to walk that sucker right in there and move on to one of the most iconic cutscenes in the game. Set up real well.
So in the chat informing us an interesting piece of information. Professor clipped under the map in a boss fight in practice. So yeah, we are definitely hoping that that does not happen.
Definitely hoping. Is there a backup to that? Like, can you even die if you clip under the map, or do you have to like abandon job and do all of that again?
That is out of my realm of knowledge, but I imagine it is not an easy thing.
Yeah, I definitely would hope that's not possible because, like, don't look now, folks, but here comes Stevens pulling up on Operation Wet Tiger, and all it's going to take is one Rajan choke from Professor PS2, or heaven forbid, some unforeseen circumstances where he clips under the map, and the Vampires might even have a lead here. And like we said before, I don't want to speculate too much on the 4-1 skill differential, but it would seem that Bacon Man not only has a hardware advantage having the PAL version, or software advantage, pardon me, with Sly 4 having the Swedish language, but also having a distinct PV advantage over Mr. Knave 357. So this looks like, especially in such a skill-heavy episode like 4-1, this is definitely going to come down to the wire, folks. So hold on to your caps, because this is where it gets interesting. And for all of the playoff marbles, the Bloodbath Bay Buccaneers, will they be able to get to 3-1 and keep their hopes very much alive for a first-round bye into the ACES playoffs? Or will the Vampires be able to fight for their lives? Will they be able to pull it out? And will they be able to clinch a spot and make it almost impossible for anybody else to join the fray? We're going to find all of that out and more within the next hour. It's going to be exciting. It's all happening here on Sly Golds as we see Mr. Knave awaiting in feudal Japan for the result of this run, cheering his teammate on as Stevens is trying to get Bacon as loose as he possibly can. Or as ready. Oh my gosh, no, don't click that. Get like, as he's trying to get, like, he's trying to send Bacon on his way as fast as he possibly can. You know what I meant, right? You know what I meant by that?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, good.
We just see the professor here just wailing on Rajan, jumping over when he tries to do his swipe. This isn't the optimal damage loop that you can do against Rajan, but it is one that seems like it would be the easier of the two. There's some thunderflop techniques that will send him into the electric fence from even just the middle of the arena, which are quite cool to see, but I have heard are quite difficult to pull off consistently. So this seems like it's working pretty consistently for the Professor, and hopefully he can get to the end.
I think he's only like taking damage from like maybe a couple of rocks at this point. Looks like this is pretty consistent. Rajan's already down to basically no health, and so with a few more punches, that's all it's going to take for Knave to get going in feudal Japan and to get going for the last leg of the race here. Taking one little hit here, like I said, not much further to go now. Healthy there just in case he needs it, but he doesn't, as Rajan
There goes
falls.
down Rajan.
And there goes Nave 357 for the Buccaneers in the last leg of this round 4 match. Buccaneers are the first to get into Slide 4. Stevens still a little bit behind here, just now getting into the Rajan cutscene. So the Vampires, make no mistake, are still going to have some ground to make up here. So I wonder if Nave is aware of the situation. I wonder if he just tries to forego some newer strats. I'm not sure if he's entirely familiar with newer things like the displacement boosting, or maybe even one of the new out of bounds skips that was found inside of the prison section of Breakout, which is going to be a very interesting job in of itself. But we will have to see. I'm sure Nave is fully aware of the situation here, and so we will have to see kind of what the game plan is, and if Bacon has any sort of way to help close this gap.
Yeah, I mean, these runners had maybe an hour, 15 minutes since the start of the runs to get some practice into this episode. I did see that Bacon Man said it was 5 a.m. For him right now, so maybe he was doing a little bit of a nap instead of practicing. But yeah, there's a lot of strats that can save a lot of time in this episode, but they are like 1-frame pauses, 1-frame displacement boosts, so it could be tough. But there's time to save there for sure.
And now, as I said, episode 1, like, if it wasn't for episode 4, I might argue for this being the most skill-heavy episode in the entire game, which seems really, really hard to say, especially when you have episodes like 4-2 that exist and 4-5 still being really hard with a lot of the new skips that have been found, and with the decibel fight sometimes giving you a little bit of trouble. But there's still a lot to go here. Like, don't get me wrong, folks. There are some jobs here that can really trip you up if you haven't practiced them. Sushi House startup can go wrong in a few ways. Something's fishy can give you really bad RNG. And we both know very well that altitude sickness is anything but free, with things like a 10-second time save in the part before the boss fight, with an instant cutscene skip, with Tiger Tail going wrong sometimes, and even with the El Jefe boss fight, where a 1 cycle can be the defining point of your run, or it can absolutely break your run. And considering it's the last thing that you have to do, that's where things can get intense. So we'll see if Nave starts to handle that well as he heads on to a very difficult job. And as Stevens finishes up on the right side here, and then we can start talking about Breakout, one of the coolest jobs in the run.
Yeah, Breakout's had some new things found in it as well. We are able to skip the double crawl section in the prison there, and it's definitely a time save, but it's also something that's can be quite difficult if you haven't practiced it a lot.
Absolutely. There's the initial jump you have to do to get on top of the door to get out of bounds to begin with. That can be really finicky if you haven't practiced it, if you don't really know where to aim to. Then there's also just there's a lot of specific spots. If you know what you're doing, it's not too bad, but like you said, it can definitely trip you up. As we see, meanwhile, Stevens on the right, GG's to him, and GG's to Professor PS2 as well, if I didn't say that sooner. Stevens finishes that up, and now Bacon Man is free into feudal Japan as he begins to go off onto photo op. If we could, from some moderators in chat, I would love to know what the exact time difference is between the two runners right now. I would like to say it's in the ballpark of like 2.5, 3 minutes, perhaps not that large. But being a full job behind in Sly 4, that is definitely no small thing, Slink.
Yeah, it does feel like about 2.5 minutes, based on what I know about the timings of running this episode. Quite a lot of times, as I'm sure you also have.
Yes, no, absolutely. I've run this episode particularly enough to kind of have a decent idea of job lengths and how far behind or ahead somebody would be. Bacon, for what it's worth, does not look like he is had much to worry about. Although something important to note, it looks like, is he playing on Finnish?
It is definitely not Swedish.
Yeah, that is most definitely not Swedish. I would like to say, as somebody who's done a small amount of Finnish Duolingo, not that makes me fluent or anything, but I would like to say he's playing in Finnish. I think I've seen Ohito, and I've seen that text enough times in Power Man's runs, because he often runs in Finnish. Yeah, I do believe, Mina Tunista, that's Finnish. That is most definitely Suomi, my dear friends. That's an interesting development, because like I said, Nave is playing on English, so it looks like neither runner really getting a significant language advantage. I don't Language has never been a huge deal in Sly 4 to begin with, but it still does save a tiny bit of time. I'm not exactly sure what the time differential here is between Finnish and English. I've never looked into it. Slink, would you have any idea kind of what that is relatively?
No, but I would. Oh, according to Remo, it's 0. There is no difference.
All right, so there you go. Clean slate then. Both runners are doing a perfectly fine, even race anyways as far as language advantage, so that's no worry.
All right, and Nave in chat informing us that he does indeed know all the new strats, but has not practiced them, so will likely not be going for them, which is fine. A lot of the new strats are very difficult. This game has gotten a lot harder over the last several months.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Commentators should, yeah, nice one, Takei. Like, we should just, Takei jokingly saying that we should, insult Nave anyway, saying, like, oh, does he know the news? Yeah, you know. Thank you. I appreciate him at least for stating that in the chat while he's in the middle of the race. So, Nave, he's just going to do a strat here where he's going to go around the guard, and he is going to do the old way where he's just going to crawl through this place. I am interested to see, though, if Bacon is attempting these new strats. I don't know if he is in chat as well, if he can hear it, but that would be an interesting development for sure if Bacon was going to go for that kind of technique and Bacon did not.
Yeah,
Or
and
the other way.
going for the new strats and not hitting them can lose you a decent amount of time. So it's kind of that risk reward there when you're already behind where you need to save the time, but you know, sometimes if you're not practiced enough at it, it might just end up biting you worse.
Nave, we also see here taking a little bit of a safer route as far as, oh, and also getting burned by fire there. Yeah, I was going to say, taking it a little bit safer there. This section here at the very end can be a little bit cumbersome. The hitboxes on those spews of flames can be very deceiving. They're a lot bigger than you may expect, but Nave getting through their second try without much issue. As we see Bacon on the right side, I believe, also taking advantage of another hideout, saving a few seconds there as opposed to the old strat. So it is very possible, if he's going to go for that, that Bacon is familiar with some of the newer strategies in Sly 4 as a whole. Now, again, whether or not he attempts them is an entirely different story, but should he be able to hit those, especially with Nave making a mistake or two, maybe with some good Something's Fishy RNG, maybe with a good final job, this could get real close real fast. We'll have to see.
Oh, absolutely. And Nave actually, unfortunately, getting into the costume there. That was some good luck on that guard being asleep, actually. There would have been some time saved to just run through that.
He didn't go for the shadow skip, Sag. Yeah.
He knows about it, though. He knows about it.
I know he knows about it. Yeah, I don't want to say I don't think I'm the person who found that. I think somebody quoted. I posted a video about that skip one time. There's a tiny bit of collision right around that guard you can jump on. That even if he's shining his light, you can jump over. I think, according to Kula and some other people, that skip was found a while ago, but nobody was using it. So, if anything, I guess I just kind of reminded people that it was there and we could use it. So, huzzah! That's something, I guess.
True, and for those curious, I believe Beaver found this, but if you actually get onto those hooks, it activates the dragons earlier. So even though your movement to getting onto the platforms is slower, the dragons are activating faster, and you're kind of dependent on those cycles for how fast you're going.
Bacon, meanwhile, we see getting into the starting section of this prison. This is really just the whole part of Breakout in a nutshell, is a lot of really precise paraglide boosting jumps, and just really practice makes perfect here. I can't stress that enough for anyone new trying to get into this game.
Oh, I do believe Bacon's going for the new strats.
Looks like he is, yeah. Stealth slamming that guard for safety and did not hear it. We'll see if he makes it. Fortunately, not getting there on the first try. Not getting their second try either. This is not looking great to start. I think he's going just a tiny bit early. Does nail it on the second try, though. As long as he nails his spots, he should be okay, and he gets over the fence.
There you go. Double crawl skip right there.
So I'm not sure how much time that's going to end up saving him in the long run, having to take 2 attempts. That might save him a tiny amount of time over doing the crawlway. More importantly, though, we'll have to see how he navigates this section right here. Those axe cycles can be a little bit tricky if you're not ready, and the second part even more taxing, as we saw. He's going for it all, and he is going to get past. Yeah, wonderful display of skill there by Bacon Man. Pretty clean in all likelihood. I thought that he may have had to ledge grab there. I thought he may have gotten burned, but no, clears all the fire. And Bacon Man with some very clean movement would have been even more monumental if he was able to hit that trick on the first attempt. But still a very good breakout so far for Bacon Man. We'll have to see if he can keep it up.
Yeah, I believe I actually lost some time on the double crawl skip, but definitely made a lot more back on the costume list. And also doesn't have the guard light
Woo!
there. That's crazy.
Saw both runners forego the shadow strat sag. But yeah, that's extremely rare in of itself. I feel like I see that guy's light down once every like 10 attempts I'm at that job, and now both people got it. That is honestly really crazy.
I feel like it was like a year of me playing the game before it ever happened for the first time, let alone seeing it happen twice in a row.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. It's absurdly rare, and even then, like none of us used to run past it because we were all afraid, like, wait, can this guy actually hear us? So that's something in of itself.
Dismissed.
So yeah,
Yeah, because
Bacon Man.
those guards being in a tutorial level are their lights are a little bit bigger on the hitboxes than some other ones.
I hear that. I hear that. Yeah, definitely. It's Live 4, like I said, the hitboxes with a variety of things can definitely just be a little bit deceiving at times. So there are some things that you unfortunately kind of have to know from failure and that you kind of get used to after some trial and error. But yeah, Bacon Man finishing up Breakout. And once again, besides the two unfortunate fails from the crawl skip, a very good Breakout, I would say.
I need to press and hold the R2 button to gather my focus.
Yeah, we'll probably see Nave here going through a very classic sushi house startup. Just going to collect all the knives. Go mostly the casual way.
Yeah, I don't know if there's much to say about this job. We do have some crazy strats in the final room with a big boost, and we do have one little moment of RNG here in the second room. But overall, I would say this is one of the more consistent jobs in this episode. Would you agree with that?
If you're doing it the way that I'm sure that Nave is about to, yes, it's consistent. For me, at least, with some of the new strats, with the, I'm not sure what we were calling it, but when Ryuichi gets stuck on something in his Dragon Leap, and he just kind of like flies across the map. That one I feel like is a little bit tougher. And we're actually seeing Nave go for at least one, both new strats actually.
He's doing it.
He's proven me wrong.
He's gonna
first
get it.
Try.
Woo!
I felt like that was out of spite. I feel like it, but very
I was
clean.
literally. Yeah, no, Nave. He certainly does know the new strat, chat, and he is not afraid to go for it as he collects his knives, and he is going to finish out this room here. And now, coming up is perhaps one of the most influential jobs we will see in this entire episode. So, Slink, tell our beloved friends in chat a little bit about Something's Fishy.
Well, it starts off with an auto stroller hack that takes a lot of time and is not fun. And then all of a sudden, it's just a ton of RNG that can like be plus or minus like 15 to 20 seconds, depending on the RNG you get and your execution with it. It's just kind of annoying in that way.
Most definitely. Like the auto scroller bit, we have had a new development there with some hacks. You are able to do the final boss at the end of them even faster than you could before due to some restart checkpoint strats that were found by some community members at some point in the recent time frame of this game. But yeah, besides that, Something's Fishy, really just a lot of RNG, not of course just with the fish minigame at the very end, but there's a lot of things to worry about. There's an ICSS you have to do to try and save some time should you want to go for it. There's bug cycles that you have to worry about that can really make you slow down. There's some jumps that you can only do if the bug cycles are good. It can be a little bit complicated. And so sometimes that job is a little bit harder to navigate, and it can really just put you down if you're not too careful.
Yeah, almost seeing Bacon there almost touched the same plate Nave did, but just missed it.
Yeah, no, I think you can actually fail the job in that way if you hit that plate. I think there are some circumstances where that guard can turn around and actually spot you as you're going to the door. So very lucky for Bacon as well, and very lucky for Nave that that didn't end up happening to him. That could have lost him a little bit more time, as looks like Nave is going to go to sleep for about 2 minutes as he tries to go through this hack on autopilot.
We'll be fishing in no time.
Bacon, meanwhile, I would assume based on what we've seen from him so far, he is going to go for the more advanced stuff in this job. We'll have to see. Oh, actually getting stuck there and missing the circle boost and having a little bit of trouble getting back up there again. Hopefully that doesn't cost him too much. A little bit of an unfortunate development there. He does get that jump, though. Very nicely done. Not too much to worry about there. Very cleanly, might I add. The actual jump part moving out of there very fast.
Yeah, once he got onto the spire point, everything was pretty good there.
And Remo pointing out in chat that the new strategies developed for the bosses at the end, it was known about for some time, but many people thought that it just couldn't be done because you couldn't kill the boss very fast with no level ups. But Senor Mapio, of course, a beloved member of the community, especially in recent years when he came into the fray, went back to the kitchen as he usually does and started cooking up some more wonderful strategies and proved that yes, it can in fact be done. Mapioto, of course, has made numerous developments at this point in Sly 4, both the any percent and 100% categories, as well as some more recent stuff in Sly 3, where he just found a crazy proxy in down the line in episode 4. That is yet to come to any sort of viability yet, but perhaps in the future, if there's a setup or something found for it, we'll see.
Yeah, I do believe that proxy has been known about for a while, but maybe trying to find a consistent way to do it.
Yeah. I think the proxy has been known about. I'm not sure if anybody has ever been able to consistently get the kind of proxy that he found, where you can actually launch yourself all the way over to Sal's treasure temple, and then from there you can just drive to the end of the job where Murray is being held and might just blow up. And apparently now I'm getting word from Remo as well, because he's far older than I am. I'm just kidding, Remo, you're great. Thank you for all the factual information. It's very helpful. Snuggles apparently found it and showed it in a TAS a handful of years ago, but from the sound of it, it has not really reached any sort of RTA viability outside of the one Mapioto showcase. And I think, did Bacon just have, like, a charge attack bot?
No. If you hit square as that cutscene is starting, the like animation of Murray's arm going forward still keeps going into the cutscene. So you still see like the pink like streak of his fist.
That's interesting. In all my time of running that game, I don't know if I've ever seen that before, funny enough. I thought like he had one of those weird charge attacks where you press square and then triangle and you can just rush forward. Nave on the left side we saw unfortunately missing the quick kill. We'll have to see if he can get this cutscene skip. There's a certain visual cue with Murray's tail. We'll have to see if he can get this here. Don't know if he really went for it. Doesn't end up getting it. That's perfectly all right for his sake. I believe that cutscene skip saves around like 3 seconds if you get it first try. So not monumental, but
Yes.
definitely still some time save there. Yeah, all right.
Found by It's Bytes when Bytes was running this game years ago.
Wonderful, man. Yeah. Had a wide variety. It's just like it's so cool to see like how many different community members have found strategies for this game throughout the years, especially when everyone makes fun of Sly 4 for being like the one game that nobody plays. Nave, though, on the left side, we do see him getting some unfortunate bug RNG there, which is kind of what I was alluding to. Sometimes like that, you just kind of get slowed down out of your control, and well, not an absolute run killer. It's just annoying to have 3 pretty good splits at the start and then get to something's fishy and be like, ah, okay, this isn't that good.
Good fish RNG, or good lightning bug RNG, I believe they're called lightning bugs. There on the second one, though, was able to just jump past them. Didn't have to throw a rock or anything.
Yeah. Didn't have to toss the rock. Okay, I'm sorry. It's the last time I make that joke. I've run that under the ground in 2-3. But yes. That can definitely just be slowed down for a little bit if you have some bad lightning bug RNG. Speaking of slowing down because of some terrible RNG, this minigame, besides having the 6-axis for whatever reason, which many people dread, this minigame will be your best friend, and this minigame will also make you want to cry.
This minigame's my worst enemy. I don't know. It's never been my friend.
I remember, I think I got, in runs, I got 155 fish, and that was during the 100% community race that we did between you, myself, Avatar, and oh my gosh, who else was there? Was Kulo part of that race? I can't remember who else was there, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
That race. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was so long ago at this point. That's hard to believe.
Oh,
but
Bacon Man over here on the right's going for the new strats. I believe just got it.
And he did. Yeah, he did. That is definitely going to save a little bit of time.
Plus the time that Nave didn't have to quit kill on.
Definitely great there. Nave also looked like he almost could have actually gone for the second jump there. You can't actually jump back across that gap if the lightning bug RNG is good enough, which I think it was, but he didn't seem to want to go for it. Bacon as well on the right side, not attempting that cutscene skip either, but for what it's worth, Bacon has executed a lot of new strategies in this episode pretty well. If not for the two unfortunate misses in the out of bounds and breakout, I would say he's hit a lot of things pretty consistently, as we see Nave there having a little bit of trouble navigating the platforms with the fish bucket.
But
getting out of there just fine.
Bug RNG there. Didn't even get zapped on the way back, which it's very common to get zapped at least once.
Bacon, meanwhile, we're seeing having, phenomenal bug RNG right there. Just curious as well, Slink, did you happen to see what Nave's final time was on the fish minigame? I think I missed it.
I believe it was a 48.
40. So that's like... is that even... I feel like that's slightly below average. I don't think that's a very good fish.
If I remember
correctly.
It's typical. I feel like 58, or not 58, 48 to like 51 is nice.
So like 58 Monk Ass, I think 58 is like possibly world record on fish. Like the best that anybody has ever gotten on that.
We even see Bacon Man doing some very small optimizations there on the movement with Murray there. I believe Remo found quite recently.
You know, it's definitely... I think Bacon, you can tell, like I said, I apologize for not keeping more up to date with his Sly 4 resume, because I hadn't really known how much he was keeping up with this game. For what it's worth, he does seem to definitely be keeping up with some of the newest strategies, and he's executing them pretty well. So props to him for that, and props to him for going all this stuff to begin with. It definitely could end up paying off should Nave have a few more mistakes here in this episode. Still a long way to go.
Yeah, we've got Nave moving on to Pretty in Pinker, which has the best dance sequence in the entire game. In everyone's
depending on who you talk to.
I don't think that's an opinion. I think it's a fact. It's just the best one.
I would say it's factual. Yes, definitely.
Even monetarily, I believe it is more profitable than the other dance sequence.
More profitable? I mean, I guess technically speaking, has anybody ever tried to science that? Like, how many coins? What is the maximum amount of coins you can get from the Murray dance compared to the Carmelita dance section? That is the ultimate measure of which dance is better, is who rakes in more money. Meanwhile, Bacon over there had phenomenal bug RNG in that job. Absolutely.
And Nave taking a shot there right to the face.
Yeah.
Some of these spotlights are tough to deal with.
Yeah, especially if you end up getting some weird cycles, they can be a little bit tricky to navigate. There's also one rat over here. Looks like Nave is going to pass that by just fine, but there's also one rat there. If he's walking in a particular way, that can really mess you up, can be difficult to navigate. Nave looks like he's also going to go for the harder jump, and I don't think he's going to get it, unfortunately. He's going to have to try and take some cover here, not get shot. Gets lucky, doesn't get shot. Trying to navigate back to the other room as Bacon finishes up what was overall a really good Something's Fishy. Nave also having a little bit of trouble with the floor as he tries to circle boost there, which he does. Is he? No way. Oh, he's a hot scotcher. I like it. I respect
going
it.
For a strat that saves half a second, if done perfectly.
Unfortunately, not working out so well for him right now, as he's going to forego it instead, losing a bit of time on that. He is cringing, as he says to himself.
The chat is not happy with Nave's choice of what strats to go for, but I personally am a big fan of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I respect it. That's another strat where I don't know if I was the one who found it, but I showcased it that, like, it can be done. I think it only saves, like, half a second. Like, that's something that a lot of people only really go for if you're a Mad Lad or if you're going for Calm Gold. Knave, though, yeah, Mad Lad strats, I definitely respect it, and still definitely has a good lead. That's definitely not going to break the race. Bacon, especially now, just getting into Pretty and Pinker, we will see if he is also going to do some more advanced strats. If we see two hot scotchers on stream, I'm going to be in a state of bliss, though, I will fully admit. It's going to be pretty cool if we see two people go for that.
I would definitely be surprised. That's a tough trick. That's a tough trick. Oh, Nave got the trick in practice. Classic speedrunner issue. Classic speedrunner issue.
Classic.
It always went better in practice. Oh, Bacon Man having the worst guard RNG there at the start of this job on the inside here. Those guards have the chance to be facing away from you, so you can just kind of run to that bouncy pad. But that one they were all facing directly at him.
You know, it's definitely not a super consistent trick if you haven't practiced it for sure. It's definitely a little bit precise, and so you really have to try and line it up in a good way. I feel like the most important thing for it is we see Bacon get the fast cycle there. The most important thing for it is really just the muscle memory of the stick movement. I feel like that's the most important thing. Bacon is unfortunately going to have to wait for this fire cycle here. He is just a tad bit too slow. And he's also hot scotching. I love it. And he nails it first try.
First try.
Gentlemen, I want chef kiss for both of you.
They are listening to the commentary. That's for sure.
I love it. Gentlemen, you are both sexy, and I both want to give you more money than these guards are giving to Murray. I love you. Phenomenal stuff we're seeing for episode 1. Let's go. So phenomenal.
I do believe, based on my memories of timing, I believe we're probably about 2 minutes apart between the two runners, though. So still some time to make up for Bacon Man.
No, I think you're definitely right. I think it's tough to kind of gauge. Okay, I shouldn't even say that, but yeah, I usually don't like to speculate on like time loss and how things could have been different throughout these races because it's not great to do that for other people. But really, like, I think Stevens was able to make up a decent amount of time in 2-3, but I still just think, like, Mappiotho in episode 4 at the start, that's really been the difference so far. Like, he just ran away with that episode from Juggling Act and beyond, and so far, since that point, the Bucks really haven't looked back.
Yeah, Mappiotho had a very clean episode 4 from Sly 4, and has kind of kept things going this whole time. Definitely some work to do left. It's not impossible. We can still see this race end up pretty close. But definitely shout out to Mappiotho for getting that lead to start off the relay race.
Well, Mappiotho definitely making a huge gap there. We see Stevens now approaching this very dance that Nave or Stevens. I'm just talking about Stevens. Bacon Man now we see approaching this very dance that Nave is on here. And like I said, listen, altitude sickness is still on the board. There is a lot that can happen here. Do not get us wrong. There is by far some skill still left to be executed, and there is still some room left to be made up. As well, also, I wonder if we see Bacon Man go for the cutscene skip in altitude sickness thanks to the displacement boost, and how much time that is going to end up making up should he get that far and this still be a race. But we'll have to find out.
If he's practiced it at all, I assume he's going to go for it. Because I know Remo did the math on this on how worth it was to go for each displacement boost based on how often you got it. And I don't think you needed to get the altitude sickness one very often to make it worth it.
If I remember correctly, I think I might be confusing this with the displacement boost in Breakout on the way to the second guard with the armor piece. If I remember correctly, I think you literally only need like an 11% success rate. Maybe not even that for it to be worth it.
We have Yanni giving some fake numbers, but yeah, it's fairly low. It's probably like, I remember the number 11%, but I feel like it's probably closer to 20. But again, I'm just kind of rattling off numbers myself as well. 1 in 14 to 15, according to Remo.
Yeah, so that's, I can't exactly do the math on that in my head, but that is definitely still like a pretty low success rate for that to be worth it. Now here's the real question I have to ask. Is it worth it to go for that once and then try it again and again? Or is it better if you just like attempt it once or twice and then just watch the cutscene.
Well, you try it 15 times. You just try to hit it once.
Is it really save that much time though? Like if you
It
wow.
saves like 15 seconds, probably more than that.
And it's also just like I feel like that's one of the most unique cutscene skips that we found in Sly 4 in such a long time too, because it's just so weird, A, that there's no sort of trigger or anything in between El Jefe and the top of the first arena. And then the fact that like something like that, like something akin to a proxy like that exists in the game at all is still just pretty cool, especially when Sly 4 doesn't have quite as many cool, like huge tricks like proxies as say Sly 2 or Sly 3. I know there are costume launches. I got the name right this time, but we don't see those quite as often as you might expect. Knave, we also saw going for the little lantern jump that saves around 4 seconds if you hit it first try, but he's going to forego that, not attempt it too many times, and he's just going to do Tiger Tail as normally. And this is a job that I believe has also had some new life thanks to some, like, I don't even know what you'd want to call it, like costume boosting. You can like change into the costume, change out of it, still get some boost momentum. Something akin to that, I believe.
Yeah, I believe if you are holding the boost when you go into the costume, it keeps the momentum a little bit. But yeah, as everyone was saying in chat, the lamp jump is just a 1 second time save. It's not very significant. But
One second.
we did
That
see Nave give up on it quite quick, since it doesn't save a lot of time. Didn't want to have to lose time. It could have gotten worse. Could have fell into the water and lost a lot more there. So wanted to maintain that lead, keep it safe. And we were actually, I recorded the time that Nave finished that job. This is a 2-minute difference between the runners, coming
so
towards
there
the
you go.
end of the episode.
I don't know why Nave is claiming that he hates himself when he has that kind of a lead, but you know things are still going all right now for the Buccaneers. I think I don't want to speculate because Bacon has been doing pretty well over there on the right side, but at this point, I think we would need to see something akin to a meltdown from Nave in the boss fight in order for this to get much closer. Because Bacon, he does still have some time to save if he hits a lot of the strats first try, but I don't know how much more there is of this gap that he can really close up.
Yeah, I mean there's time save in spiked sushi. Um, if you're going for the first try, like the special like little attack that Ryuichi does where he throws the stars. Um, and then between like all the ICSSs and the cutscene skip and the first first cycle on the El Jefe fight, like that can all be like a minute. Um, just if Nave has like a good, oh
Ooh.
yeah,
And we see Bacon there taking an unfortunate fail in Tiger Tail, and that is not what the Kunlun Vampires need when they're trying to keep their playoff hopes alive with just a couple of jobs to go, possibly in their season. Oh man. Like I said before, he was playing like pretty consistently before that. Like I said, I think the one thing that was really keeping the run down were the two failed attempts on the skip and breakout, and then he had a little bit of a waiting period during Pretty in Pinker when he was dealing with fire. But that is definitely a very unfortunate break for the Kunlun Vampires right now. And like I said, Nave, if he holds it together, then Buccaneers are looking pretty all right now. We'll have to see what happens.
yeah, and we do get a fun fact from our producer, the Gandy Man, that the Buccaneers round 3 match had the same first 2 episodes. So they were already practiced in this coming into this.
Yeah, it's like I knew that Professor PS2 he had run 2-3 earlier, and like I knew, yeah, because I think we were talking about this a little earlier in the races that I knew I knew Mafioso ran 4-4 too, but I didn't know what race it was that they ran. So I think that's honestly kind of funny that the Bucks for a very important game they end up getting the same kind of layout again for such an important game like this. So, I mean, good luck for them and credit to them. They definitely could have still absolutely blown it. They could have played pretty poorly in some of the episodes, but like I said, I think they've taken what they've gotten and they are holding on to that with all they got as they continue to try and push it out here.
Yeah, something the Buccaneers have proven time and time again is they're very good at the pick ban part of the tournament, which is probably the most underrated part of the tournament, in my opinion. Because when my team, the Lumberjacks, went up against them, they knew that I'm a Sly 4 only person, and they banned all of Sly 4 before we were able to pick an episode from it. So that pretty much guaranteed them the win before any running was done in any episode. So um, they are quite good at doing that. As we see Nave there hit that strat the first try, throwing the
Very
shuriken
nicely
over
done.
into the lamp plant there.
Yeah,
But
Slink
yeah,
though,
the pick ban, it matters a lot.
no, absolutely. I feel like if I was on a team myself, unfortunately, I've just been commentating for the sake of this tournament. Hopefully, in the next season, I may be lucky enough to get drafted by one of these wonderful teams. But yeah, for the point you were trying to make too, I think the other thing for your unfortunate circumstance was that of all the Sly 3 episodes for you to get dragged into, you got dragged into 3-3 versus Knave. And that was the one episode in Sly 3 that he had been relentlessly grinding for like so long. And so definitely was not the situation. But like you said, that's why this competition has really taught me that I would want to be more versatile as a player. I definitely want to experience more games. As we also see Bacon Man here going for another advanced strat, which we will hit. Very nicely done by him. That's going to save him some time in spiked sushi as Knave heads to operation.
Again,
And yeah,
approximately 1 second there, I believe, is the time save that strat does.
it's not a whole lot, but yeah, it's cool, and he has definitely proven that he can go for a lot of the advanced strats in this. So keep your eye on Bacon Man. Honestly, if he comes back to Sly 4 and if he's willing to go for these kinds of strats in various other Sly 4 episodes, this man could do some damage. And I know he can do some damage because we have definitely seen his skill level already in other games and definitely in Sly 4 to a certain extent. So I'm interested to see how he could perform should he come back to the game. We are going to see though him have a little bit of trouble with the shuriken skip, missing one. Not having much trouble after that though. Knave, meanwhile, coming up is going to have a pretty big ICSS. This is going to save around 10 seconds if he hits it first try. Going to have to try and pause this at a particular time when the fireball is in his dragon's mouth. We'll have to see if he can hit it.
Yeah,
Also,
for those not in the know, here on the fireballs, right as the fireball hits the dragon head, you can pause and get schematic right there. Just like
absolutely.
Knave did. The game is just simply too easy for Knave.
Yeah, just that might be all she wrote there, folks. Yeah, unfortunately, missed one fireball entirely. That's going to take away a little bit of the time save he got there. But then the first try fireball to make up for it. Epic hit for Knave right there. As the Buccaneers begin walking into the temple and maybe looking over a potential first round bye, given the circumstance. But we will have to see. They are beating the Vampires down to their last breath here as Bacon Man attempts to catch up heading into altitude sickness.
Yeah, a lot can still happen here, but I don't know if 2 minutes can happen, you know? But we will see. It's could go either way, really.
Anything could still happen, you know? Crazy stuff could still happen. It is, in fact, ACES, yeah. I think what's going to be really interesting is just the post-game commentary with the teams that we're going to have to look at. Once again, Slink, going back to what you said earlier about the picking and banning phase being the most important part of the run, you are dead on with that. I think that is the most important part of the entire run. And like, I get that Bacon Man is still pretty comfortable with this episode. He's been great with it, but like, I don't know. There's part of me that still almost can't believe that of all the layouts they could have chosen, 2 Sly 4 episodes and then a Sly 1, like, it just seemed like when they had 2 picks, it just seemed like their layout could have been very different. But again, I'm also not in that locker room. I'm not talking between all the teammates. So I'm very curious if we get the Vampires in here post game for the commentary. I'm very curious to see what their strategy was as far as picking and banning.
Yeah, I mean, often with this tournament, right, you'll see like one player who's usually the team captain at the very start, that pitch the teams, as Bacon Man also hits the ICSS there a few pauses later. That's the runners at the top who picked the teams were typically very diverse runners. They've run a lot of the games. They've been pretty high-level runners at least 2 of the games, if not all 3. And then as you got down lower into the pool of players that we had, some of those players have played 1 episode of 1 game. Some players have only played 1 game out of the 3. And so you get to that place where you need to do that like balance of do I get my player what they're comfortable with, or do I try and get their player something they're not comfortable with? And really, with how long this tournament's been going on, it's given runners like ACES time to get really comfortable playing some of these episodes and some of these games. And it's been really cool to see some of these new runners really develop those skills, like even just throughout the competition.
You know, it's like I think you're dead on with what you're saying there. I think it's a great point that maybe it's not always about playing to somebody's strengths, but it's also kind of about just, hey, what can I do that's going to really make this team have a hard time? And perhaps that was the mindset for Kunlun. Maybe they underestimated a few of the players. Maybe they just like thought they had a strength there. But that's again why I'd be really interested in joining in on this next year. I was unfortunate a little bit to the fray this year. I had some personal manners I had to deal with, but I am just very excited to be a part of this. I'm hoping that all the runners in the future are still having a great time with this game, and with these games, I should say, with this time. And I hope that, you know, there's going to be more great stories and more great strategies and just more great games to help commentate on, as we see Nave there foregoing the cutscene skip against the advice of Remo. Can I just say, like, Remo in chat has been having the time of his life in this match. It has been an absolute comedy hour for Remo. He's been, like, taking shots at everybody throughout this, including
Yeah, I can't tell if Remo didn't go to bed last night or if he woke up really early. I'll be honest.
He was just like, he took a shot at the commentary booth earlier too. He was just saying like, "Yo, this commentary booth smells like cheeseburgers and America." Like, dude, get out of here! Like, come on, man. No, I'm kidding, dude. Obviously, Remo, like, love having you in chat, dude. It's just fun to kind of see a different side of everybody. It's cool. As we see Nave there get a pretty easy first cycle on El Jefe as Bacon Man approaches the door. Is this really a 2-minute gap? I guess it really is, huh? This almost doesn't feel like 2 minutes as we see Nave falling down there and getting set back a tiny bit. See how much that ends up mattering at this point.
No, both players actually on PV pace in a marathon setting is quite impressive.
Yeah, which is definitely great for both players. Like, even regardless of who wins, you love to see people doing well and people getting new PBs, especially with, you know, the whole speedrunning aspect of it. So hopefully, regardless of the outcome of the race, hopefully we get to see both runners here pull out great PBs.
Yeah, in this second phase of El Jefe that we're seeing right now, there's actually
we see Nave there actually completely miss a fireball, and he's gonna have to do a little bit more. He's gonna have to, I think, go through 2 whole cycles to get hits on El Jefe. That could be something. As we see if Bacon will actually attempt this cutscene skip. Is he gonna even go for it, folks? He's gonna go for it. Nave taking a death on El Jefe, and Bacon getting the cutscene skip. Hold on to your horses. Wait a minute. This might not be over. Uh-oh. And Nave still hasn't even gotten through this freaking cycle. All of a sudden, both our runners staring down the discount tiger. Nave just got to make sure that his timing is all right now. Oh boy. Is this going to come down to 1 cycle? I don't know if the gap's that close. I don't know if it's that close yet, but that could be something. Nave's really got to be careful now to play around this. Bacon, we see they're taking an unfortunate ledge grab. Oh boy. This time he swings carefully.
Yeah, but as I was saying, there's a new strat that saves a little bit of time in the second El Jefe phase, where you just stand really far away from the second fireball, I believe, and he won't do the electric animation, where you have to take the damage.
Yes, no, as you were saying, yeah, that is something I honestly didn't even recognize as a new strat, but I believe that was found. And you saw Bacon just implement that now, so He will get a second cycle there, but who knows if that is going to matter at this point. It looks like Knave is going into the final phase of the El Jefe fight. We will see if he gets the El Jefe one cycle to close it out for the Buccaneers, or if some other crazy shenanigans will happen that could close this gap to something reasonable. It looks so close, but it might just be too far away for the Kunlun Vampires at this point. Is Knave approaching it? Timing looks good. He gets it out. Is he going to have 8 hits in him?
Oh,
He's gonna miss the
very close. But I still think that this is Knave's.
This is Knave's to lose at this point. He's got 1 hit left on El Jefe. Bacon is just approaching the final phase of the fight, but all he's got to do is time 1 fireball correctly, and it is his. If he doesn't miss this, then Bacon won't have a chance.
Yeah, taking
he hits
no
it, and that is it! And the Tampa Bay... I knew I was going to do that. The Bloodbath Bay Buccaneers swashbuckle the Kunlun Vampires and their playoff hopes. Kunlun is now out of the playoff picture. The Buccaneers get to 3-1 on the season and now have aspirations of a first-round bye in the ACES playoffs. And more importantly, that means every team that is sitting with 2 wins now has a guaranteed spot in the dance. Venice is in, Gungathal is in, the whole fray is in, including now the winner of the upcoming match between the Prague Bombers and the Nunavut Lumberjacks. The winner of that match, ladies and gentlemen, will be our last playoff team. What a race from the Buccaneers, and what a hard-fought season from the Kunlun Vampires. Try as they might to pull it back, unfortunately was just a little bit too big of a gap there at the end. Knave, little shaky at some points, but able to close it out for the Buccaneers, and they will have their heads held high, rolling into the ACES playoffs.
Yeah, very close race at the end there. St. Bacon Man got a 42-50. Very cool. But as we welcome in the winning runners from the Buccaneers, welcome.
And all of the runners.
All the runners, welcome.
Hello.
Let's go.
Yeah, congratulations, Buccaneers. And congratulations, Vampires, on a hard-run season. It was a great first season of ACES. Happy you guys could participate.
Yeah. All right, so Slink, do you want to start with the questions, or should I go out first?
You can start.
All right, so now normally the way I would want to do this is we take it from the top with 2 different players and just kind of talk about the races as a whole. But first of all, over on the side of the Vampires, one thing I've got to ask about for the sake of the chat, the picking and banning phase, you guys were there with 2 Sly 3 episodes, and instead of that, you forego that for 4-1. So what's the mindset there? What were you guys thinking about that?
So, I knew I had practiced 4-1 a fair bit in my time, like even yesterday. And I was quite sure that Knave hadn't practiced 4-1 that much at all, or any Sly 4. Like, I was pretty much convinced that Sly 3 was his game at the time. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
And so definitely Slink was alluding to that kind of mindset earlier, not necessarily picking towards your strengths, but picking towards somebody else's weaknesses. Knave, though, in spite of maybe a tiny bit of rust, but I'm not one to judge, still able to close it out for a Buccaneer victory. Now, going for all of the runners all around, I want to start from the top with Mappiotho and Ostrava. You two, the New Bloods, an exciting race in 4-4. How did you two feel with that? I guess we'll start with Ostrava over there on the side of the Vampires. How'd you feel about the race, man?
I definitely could have performed better, but keeping up with 2 games, also multiple consoles dying this season, and also moving. Didn't get as much practice as I could in. Was about 3 minutes behind PB once I finished the race, so wasn't my best performance, but the stuff I actually practiced before the match started. Had a very strong feeling of running 4-4 today, and it ended up happening. Just wish I did a bit more practicing.
Yeah, man, no, definitely. It sounds like you could have, listen, given those circumstances, I think you and your entire team once again still had an absolutely valiant effort. It's great to see you running, and I was happy to see you run 4-4. So congratulations on a hard-fought season. And Mappiotho as well, with a 4-4 where outside of juggling act and maybe 1 or 2 things here or there, very good 4-4. How'd you feel about it, man?
Really good, honestly. Sub 50 before is always good on marathon. Juggling act was bad. and maybe another split. But they ended up getting a big lead for the team, and it ended up very well. Yeah.
And Map, I think definitely that is something worth mentioning. Is I think with like maybe Stevens, I think as we move on to that in 2-3, Stevens, I think we're gonna start with you. You definitely made up a bunch of time there in 2-3, and I know that you're planning on doing a big community race for Sly 2 in the coming weeks. So how did you feel about your crack at that episode?
I was really confident in how I could play in 2-3. However, I was panicking a bit when we went to pick. The Buccaneers banned both the episodes I was planning on running. We were gonna pick 2-8 first and then 2-5 next, and they banned both of them. I probably should have picked like 2-6, something that Professor would have been less practiced in, but I went with what I was the most practiced in out of all the episodes that were left.
I remember just like thinking for a moment there, 2-4 was like taking a while to get banned, and I'm thinking, what are the chances that somebody actually picks it this round? This is the time that it gets picked. But then again, I'm also not sure how Mr. PS2 Professor would have felt about that. But more importantly, how'd you feel about the 2-3 race? How'd you feel about your performance there?
Honestly, I just felt a lot faster this time because as of late, I've been practicing on my PlayStation 2 rather than my 3, so I have a bit of a, how you say, shackles on me. So when I get to competition, I'm much faster. Honestly, I was a little panicky in the first day, but day 2 in operation, I was at my A game the entire time. Ignore the spice grinder broom. Anywho.
No, definitely. Like I said, I think that was also a very interesting part of the race, just seeing you two kind of be consistent and work that out. Like you said, I think day 1, not that I could have done any better in that episode because I don't run Slide 2, but maybe there was a little bit of shakiness, but then day 2 was when you really started to clean stuff up and get things back together for your team. Also, a very consistent Rajan fight. Not choking that, I felt like was a pretty big deal. So congratulations to both of you for a very hard-fought race.
I mean,
now,
Professor got a 1-minute PB in the episode, and I was 3 seconds behind my PB, so we both played very well.
Oh my gosh, yeah, so congratulations, guys, to both of you for that. Like,
it was, I'm a little upset I didn't get that sub 35 I was aiming for, but 35-18, that's fine. Especially when I had a 35 on PS2 last night.
There will be more runs, and hey, look at it this way: you guys will still have more time in the season to look and practice that kind of stuff. So who knows? A PB could still come in a race setting if you want to get it there. And once again, GG's to both of you on that. And moving on now, I guess, to the anchors of both of the races. Starting over there with Mr. Bacon Man, dude. Let me just say this from coming from somebody who has held a world record in 4-1. I know that there's a lot more strategies now that there used to be. You were really freaking good at that episode. You played a phenomenal race when I did not expect it. So how did you feel about it?
Well, yeah, I PB'd by a minute. That's what else is there to say? Like, I hit LFA 1 cycle, and the displacement boost was like second or third try. Got the ACES. Like, everything just kind of worked apart from Tiger Tail.
Tiger Tail could definitely be a bit of an inconsistent job there. I just think, yeah, once again, implementing a lot of the new strategies, you definitely seemed consistent with a lot of that. I think the only real blemish on some of the new tech was missing the 1 skip twice in Breakout, the out of bounds. But yeah, once again, I'm not here to judge, and I think that was still a phenomenal race for the race setting. You both played very well. Nave, I don't know how he would feel about his race, but the thing was that he closed it out. What do you have to say about that race yourself, Mr. Moderator?
Okay, so I've got about 4 points to touch on here. First of all, thank you to Bacon Man and Mapiotho, and just the EU crowd for helping to make this work and staying up so late. Appreciate that. But also to touch on Bacon Man's point earlier about the ban pick phase, we kind of expected that you might be like, oh, Nave's been playing Sly 3, let's not choose that. So that's why we left it open with 4-1, kind of expecting you'd go that route, and it worked out. 4 evil. And then the other thing is that in terms of my run, I mean, like, it was fine at first until I lost 20 seconds in Pretty and Pinker trying to do that one jump around the last boiler.
Hot scotch.
Yeah, it was going well for
For
me
the
in
boys, for
practice.
the boys.
Couldn't hit it in the run, so that sucked. Still was on PB pace, although losing those 20 seconds hurt, but still was on PB pace going into op. Hit the ICSS on the Dragon Gate, and then just had an absolute meltdown in the El Jefe fight. I don't know. I just threw that away. It was bad. And then once I got to the third tower, kind of intentionally didn't go for the one cycle because I was so scared of how I died on the other tower like an idiot that I just wanted to play it a little bit safer. But yeah, embarrassingly bad. Lost the PB. It was like a 45 something. Bacon Man's execution was certainly, absolutely way better than mine in this run. But that's why I gotta also give a shout out to Mappiotho for getting us such a strong lead at first, and then Professor, he was like me having a bit of a panic meltdown at first, but he pulled himself together and was able to maintain it and like finish pretty strong. So I really appreciate my teammates giving me that advantage that clearly I needed because I played like trash. But yeah, so pretty much that's all I got to say about my runs. It's late, I'm tired, and I'm grumpy now from that run. So that's it from me.
Thank you, Nave.
Yeah, well, I won't be much
Appreciate it.
longer here. So I mean, absolutely. And shout outs to the EU people once again. Shout outs to everybody for well played races, and shout outs to future runs to come. Slink, my commentator in arms, did you have anything to add to that?
Not really. Great questions from Shadows. Just want to shout out the 3 win streak from the Buccaneers after losing the first round. Very, very impressive. You could see the improvement throughout the tournament, and that's great.
Absolutely. Definitely a lot of interesting playoff developments coming out of this as well. Once again, to the Buccaneers. So once again, congratulations to everybody for a hard-fought season. I think all these teams were great. For Bloodbath Bay now, you guys, I believe, are praying now on a Sabres win and a Jackalopes win. And if both of those things happen, now sitting at 3-1, you guys are going to have a first-round bye sitting at the 2 seed, potentially, for the ACES playoffs. So look forward to that. And on top of that, as I mentioned before, now you're going to have to watch my fellow commentator Slink and all of the runners on both Nunavut and the Prague Bombers as they fight for the last playoff spot. But that will be next time. So from all of us here in the ACES commentary booth and beyond, thank you all for watching from wherever you are. Have a great night. Have a great morning. And until next time, stay sneaky, y'all. And don't forget the merch. We all put some huge effort into this merch. Don't forget to click the link. It is great stuff. Put a lot of effort into it. We have all the sexy mugs and all of the hats. Do not forget to shell out some cash to support your favorite teams. Put a lot of work into it. All of these guys have certainly put a lot of hard work into the teams over the years. So go check them out and go support them for that. But until then, we will catch you guys next time on the ACES competition and on Sly Golds. Take care, y'all.